Far above the ruined world, the last of humanity lived in a floating city called Miss Gun. Kanata and the others attended school in the Sky Wizard Division. One day, Chloe met with Freya to deliver documents regarding Fireteam E601, a squad made up of lower-class students. The first member was Rico. Chloe asked if Rico had issues with delusions, but Freya told her not to question it and simply read the documents. Rico ranked near the bottom of the Sky Wizard Division. People even labeled her class as Class F due to their poor performance. The general public considered someone like her a failure, but Rico believed herself to be a goddess hero destined to save the world. Chloe noted that Rico's 3 requests for resubmission had been rejected, with the comment that instead of apologizing for missing tasks, Rico should have apologized for not completing her homework. The second member was Lekti. She was a girl who dreamed of becoming a sky wizard to protect the people of Miss Gun by fighting the demon beetles. Although she admitted the thought frightened her to the point of shivering, she found joy in the idea of protecting others. Lekti was seen as someone very responsible. However, Freya commented that kind-hearted children were often the ones to fall first. Those without magic were fated to lose their memories after being killed by the beetles. That was why Lekti wanted to fight for those who had already lost everything. She was easily nervous and anxious, and her entrance exam results were poor. Still, Lekti came from a family known for their twin-blade magic sword style, and her sincerity could not be overlooked. She hoped her future as a sky wizard would shine brightly. The final member of Fireteam E601 was their leader, Miss Aura. In her very first semester during practice exams, she lost 57 times and never secured a single victory. In the following evaluations, she lost 10 more times without a single win. During her second semester, the losses continued and she was defeated 57 more times, bringing her record to 124 consecutive defeats. In short, Miss Aura was recommended to voluntarily withdraw from the academy. Chloe suspected that Miss Aura was struggling with obstacles she could not overcome. Rico, Lekti, and Miss Aura were considered the weakest group in Fireteam history, earning Fireteam E601 the title of the worst. Freya asked Chloe to do something about them. Chloe admitted that it seemed normal instructors were not able to help. Freya warned her that this was not just a request, but an order. As the head of the Sky Wizard Division, me and Chloe had no choice but to accept. Meanwhile, Lloyd spotted Kanata in the storage room and asked what he was doing. Kanata tossed a book toward Lloyd and explained that he was checking the warehouse inventory and comparing it with a supply list. He mentioned that something felt off with the food records and suspected that some of the rough Machina divisions might have taken things, so he gave them a warning in his own way. Lloyd was surprised that Kanata was actually checking everything by himself. Kanata admitted it had taken him the entire night. Lloyd was shocked, since normally it would take 10 people 3 full days to get it done. Lloyd then told him that the leader of the Sky Wizard Division wanted to see him in the office during the lunch break. After that, Kanata hurried out of the storage room, hopped on the train, and got off at ground station. As he walked toward the office, he accidentally bumped into Miss Aura, who was rushing past him. Miss Aura scolded Kanata for not paying attention, and in the confusion, his hand pressed against her chest by mistake. Embarrassed, Miss Aura blushed and asked if Kanata was implying that she looked flat. Kanata did not deny it, which made Miss Aura even more upset, and she called him disgusting. To make things worse, the bread with jam Miss Aura had been eating spilled onto Kanata's pants. Miss Aura looked disappointed because her breakfast was ruined, and she demanded that Kanata owed her for it. Kanata found it strange since his pants were now stained with jam, and he thought she should be the one apologizing. Miss Aura explained that she had barely slept, so she was in a hurry, eating on the way just to make it to practice on time. As Kanata stood up, the bread slid off his pants. Miss Aura, still annoyed, shouted for help and told people that there was a creep nearby. But when she turned back, Kanata had already disappeared. At that moment, Kanata was busy trying to wash the jam off his pants, but the red stain looked hard to remove. He then noticed Rico smiling at her own reflection in the glass window of a nearby building. Curious, Kanata wondered what she was doing. Their eyes met, and with full confidence, Rico asked if her beauty had already mesmerized him. Kanata dismissed it as just another one of her eccentric habits. Rico teased him back, calling him a stalker, and Kanata replied that she was simply weird. Rico proudly claimed to be the reincarnation of a goddess, which explained her beauty. She warned Kanata not to fall in love with her, saying that the only person allowed to adore such beauty was Rico herself. Kanata dryly suggested she should take a break from admiring herself and use that time for training instead. He noticed the uniform she wore and recognized it as the Sky Wizard student uniform. Rico told him that she disliked exhausting activities like training, especially those that made her sweat. Then Rico suddenly realized Kanata was standing there in only his underwear, and she was shocked. She accused him of being indecent and asked why he would even remove his pants after looking at her. Kanata explained that he had already taken them off earlier while trying to clean the jam stain. Riko, still flustered, was stunned that he had been walking around like that the whole time. She screamed, calling out to others and saying that there was a creep right in front of her. Once again, Kanata vanished before anyone could see him, running straight into the restroom to hide. Meanwhile, some female students in the changing room were chatting about rumors of a suspicious person wandering nearby. Kanata stepped out of the restroom, frustrated that he had been labeled as a pervert twice in one day. Just then, he accidentally bumped into Lekti near the restroom. Seeing Kanata standing there only in his underwear, Lekti's face immediately turned bright red. She stammered nervously, reminding him that this was the girls' restroom, and with a trembling voice, she asked if Kanata really was some kind of creep. Kanata quickly denied it. Kanata made his way to Freyan's place, thinking that maybe he shouldn't have taken the shortcut through the preparation field. Not long after, 2 male students spotted him and called him a traitor. When he finally arrived, Kanata ran into Yuri, who also called him a traitor. Kanata asked if Yuri was still holding a grudge against him. Yuri said she had stopped wasting her time thinking about him since to her, remembering Kanata was pointless. Even so, Kanata insisted that Yuri was still holding on to it. That annoyed Yuri so much that she almost lashed out at him, but Chloe quickly stepped in to hold her back. Yuri told Chloe to let her go, explaining that she wasn't carrying a grudge and she wasn't trying to start a fight. She claimed she was simply stating facts, but Kanata still treated it like a grudge. Frustrated, Yuri stormed off and 2 male students nearby laughed at the scene. Chloe warned Kanata not to act that way, since it could make Yuri angry, but Kanata admitted he actually hoped she would get even angrier with him. Chloe questioned why he would think like that. Kanata explained that Yuri had joined because she wanted to be with him, and he was sure she was still hurt. Since Yuri had never been good at controlling her emotions, maybe it was better if she let them out once in a while. That incident had happened more than 6 months ago. At the time, Yuri had been unconscious and never witnessed it herself, and Kanata had also been badly injured. He said that the only person who ever comes out of battle without a scratch is someone who doesn't have the skill to be there in the first place. Chloe admitted she felt responsible for what had happened, so she offered Kanata a good deal. Seeing Chloe smile as she said it, Kanata was convinced that it meant trouble. Chloe brushed off his suspicion, saying she trusted the leader of the Sky Wizard Division. Chloe then led Kanata to meet Freyan. Freyan called him a traitor who still dared to show his face. Kanata admitted he hadn't actually planned to come, but Chloe suddenly smacked him lightly to shut him up. Freyan explained she hadn't called Kanata there to lecture him. Instead, she wanted him to take responsibility and become the instructor for Fireteam E601. She told him to teach this struggling group so they could fulfill the school's mission of training Sky Wizards capable of pushing back the threat of the beetle-like demons. Kanata wondered why it had to be him, when there were plenty of others available. Chloe explained that everyone else was already assigned for the season, and besides, she personally wanted Kanata to do it. She said she knew how hard he worked behind the scenes, like helping out with logistics when nobody was watching. Kanata agreed to at least read the file, but when he looked at it, he was shocked to see how terrible Fireteam E601's results were. Meanwhile, the members of Fireteam E601 were having a discussion. Miss Aura suggested they start training, but Riko refused, saying that a goddess like her didn't need practice. Miss Aura scolded Riko, accusing her of going against her authority as the team leader. Just then, Lekti looked nervous as she tried to speak up. She said something had happened to her earlier that morning. At the same time, Kanata was walking through the school corridor. Other students who passed by recognized him. Everyone knew he was from the regular division, and most of them considered him a traitor. They wished he would just stay away from them. But to their surprise, Kanata casually asked them where the Fireteam E601 room was. The students mocked the group, calling them losers. Back with the team, Lekti admitted she had run into someone unsettling earlier that morning. Riko said the same thing had happened to her. And then Mizora added that she too had met a creepy person who had spilled bread and jam on his own pants, which she found disgusting and humiliating to even recall. Instead of solving the mystery, Riko and Mizora started arguing, and Lekti tried her best to calm them down. Not long after, Kanata entered their room. He introduced himself as the instructor of Fireteam E601, explaining that he was a second-year student in the regular Sky Wizard Division and that he was 17 years old. Mizora immediately recognized the name and labeled him a traitor. Riko said she had also heard about him, while Lekti was confused and asked if Mizora really knew him. Mizora confirmed it, calling Kanata both a well-known traitor and someone suspicious. Riko and Lekti agreed with her, convinced he was the same unsettling person they had all run into. The three of them instantly activated their weapons and pointed them at Kanata. Kanata stood there, baffled at why they were calling him that. For context, Miss Gun was a floating city dedicated to training Sky Wizards. It hovered about 3,000 meters above sea level, with a population of around 6,000 people. About 90% of them were wizards like Kanata and the others. A long time ago, humanity was forced to abandon Earth because the land had been overrun by armored insect-like demons. People moved to floating cities to continue their lives, and the city came to be known as Miss Gun. Riko considered herself to be a star in Miss Gun. That day, Kanata entered Fireteam E601's room and introduced himself as their new instructor. Miss Aura questioned why Kanata had become their instructor, but Kanata told her not to worry about the details and instead encouraged them to move forward. Mysora was convinced that Kanata couldn't read the data properly and also carried his usual shameless attitude. Kanata recognized Mizora's name as a second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division. She was 14 years old, her class performance grade was D, her practical training grade was E, and the review report even recommended that she voluntarily withdraw from the academy. Mysora argued that her abilities couldn't be measured by test results alone, but Kanata didn't seem to believe her. Mysora blushed under his gaze, unable to stand it any longer, and quickly walked away. Riko remarked that Mysora was just a low-level student, which explained her poor grades. She then tried to introduce herself to Kanata, but he already knew about her. Riko was also a second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division with an A in classroom grades. However, because she missed her homework, her practical training grade was marked as an F. Normally, E was the lowest grade, but for some reason, Riko had received an F. Riko admitted that she couldn't leave her hair messy, so she had skipped it. Kanata then pointed out that Lekti was another second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division with equally poor grades that rivaled Mizora's. Her practical exam results were unstable, as she would win and lose against the same opponents. Hearing this, Lekti felt guilty and apologized. Just as Kanata was about to begin teaching, Mizora voiced her objection, saying she didn't want a so-called traitor instructing them. Lekti, confused, asked why Kanata was being called a traitor. Mysora explained that about 6 months earlier, Kanata had fought against several insect demons and managed to escape unharmed. But ever since then, he had been seen as a coward, frequently skipping missions and missing important ranked matches where his team should have earned an S rank. After repeatedly disappointing people's expectations, Kanata earned the nickname of traitor. Mysora said she couldn't allow someone so irresponsible to be her teacher. Kanata replied that Mizora was free to voice her complaints to the head of the Sky Wizard Division, then asked whether she felt embarrassed because she had never won a first-rank match. Mizora told him not to underestimate her. She admitted that she felt ashamed, but she still wanted to become a great Sky Wizard and didn't want to waste her time. Riko argued that Kanata's remarks about her were inaccurate. Despite her young age, she had already been praised as the reincarnation of a goddess and her abilities were more than adequate. Lekti added that she didn't want to skip the training either. Kanata told them that people used to call him the Black Sword Master Kronos, and as their master, he would train them properly. If they worked hard, they could reach his level of strength or even surpass him. He asked them to imagine themselves defeating fire teams ranked above them, contributing in a dramatic way to humanity's fight against the insect demons. Inspired, the three girls imagined how cool it would be to fight those creatures. Mysora eventually agreed to be trained by Kanata, but Riko refused, saying that as a goddess she wasn't willing to sweat or work hard. Mysora grew frustrated, pointing out that this very attitude was why Riko couldn't achieve good results. Riko countered that it was only Mysora and Lekti who had failed to produce results. Mysora challenged Riko to prove it, but Riko simply mocked her. Kanata asked if Riko's exam results had been graded by Freyan, but Riko dismissed the need for exams altogether. Kanata said he had never seen Riko's true abilities, so based on the data, he had to consider her at the same level as Mizora. Riko, however, refused to accept being compared to Mizora, insisting that a goddess like her could never be placed on the same level. Kanata told her to demonstrate her abilities during training. Riko warned him not to fall for her once he saw her outstanding talent. Kanata then asked Lekti for her opinion. Lekti, embarrassed, struggled to speak up. Mysora encouraged her to look people in the eyes and say what she truly meant with confidence. But instead, Lekti lowered her head and apologized. Kanata asked whether she was apologizing because she didn't want to join the training. Lekti admitted that her apology was actually meant for Mizora. Mizora then pulled Lekti closer to Kanata, and with encouragement, Lekti finally managed to say that she wanted to do it and was willing to join the training with Kanata. That afternoon, Yuri and Chloe were chatting in the cafeteria. The female students around them admired the two of them for protecting the city. Chloe waved to greet those students, which made them really excited, and she asked Yuri to wave back as well. Yuri admitted she still was not used to being treated like that. Chloe asked if Yuri had gone back to drinking tea since coffee always seemed too bitter for her, and it looked like Yuri had not changed at all. Yuri then asked if Kanata was still considered on sick leave. Chloe pointed out that Yuri had already asked the same thing 6 times that week. Chloe explained that Kanata did not seem ready yet for a real mission, but for the moment, he was assigned as an instructor for an E-ranked fire team, and that had been Chloe's request. Yuri was shocked to hear that. She did not understand it, and in her mind, Kanata was not helping her fire team when he had the chance. Instead of supporting their logistics, he chose to go teach others, which felt selfish to her. Chloe reminded her not to speak poorly about Kanata. Chloe explained that keeping the peace was their duty as sky wizards, and she was sure Kanata felt the same. When Yuri asked how Kanata was doing at that moment, Chloe answered that he seemed to have started his lessons by flying through the skies. At that same time, Kanata was flying with Mizora, Riko, and Lekti. When he reached a good altitude, he stopped to begin the exercise. Mizora was puzzled why Kanata was using a flight device, while Riko also wondered why he did not just use his flight magic since the device had lower mobility. Mizora began to doubt his reputation as a Grand Master, saying that someone who could not even fly properly would not stand a chance against them. Kanata responded that his way of flying was simply the mark of a beginner learning the basics, which surprised them. Riko questioned why Kanata would choose such a basic program to test their skills, while Lekti just hoped he would train them seriously. Kanata then told them they could attack him with their alchemized arcana weapons at full strength. If they could defeat him, the training would end. With that, the exercise began. Kanata darted off at high speed, and Mizora confidently declared that they could defeat him. She immediately chased after him, and Lekti followed soon after. Riko was frustrated by how recklessly her teammates were rushing after a fleeing target without even a plan. Seeing Mizora chasing him, Kanata thought to himself that their team truly lacked coordination, though he admitted that Mizora's speed was not bad at all. He shouted back, asking if she really thought she could catch him alone. Mizora said she was certain, even claiming that Kanata should not be upset if she managed to land a hit. Kanata pushed his speed higher, but Mizora stayed on him, surprising him with her stamina. Before long, Mizora activated her arcana weapon, a magic sword cannon called Ragrid. She swung it toward him but kept missing. Kanata noticed that she was not able to make sharp adjustments if she only kept striking wildly. Mizora grew more exhausted but refused to stop. At that moment, Kanata prepared to fire a shot of his own. He sped up again, and Mizora assumed he was just trying to run away to avoid her attacks. Kanata praised her speed and stamina, saying they were actually quite impressive. Just when Mizora moved in for another strike, Kanata suddenly changed direction and disappeared into the clouds, leaving her confused and searching for him. Meanwhile, Lekti appeared behind Kanata, aiming her weapon at him. Kanata asked her what the name of her weapon was since it looked impressive. Lekti answered that it was called Amano Habakiri. Kanata was surprised, noting that she should have been able to land a blow if she had only tried. He encouraged her not to hesitate. Lekti began attacking, but Kanata was able to block her strikes. She was startled when she found herself too close to him, her face turning red before she quickly backed away and swung her weapon again. Kanata wondered why her movements had suddenly become inconsistent, asking if she was only stalling for time. Lekti attacked again, and Kanata realized her movements had actually become smoother. Her reflexes were quite good, but she kept making mistakes, most likely because she did not fully trust her own abilities. Kanata stopped her strike and told her that she had real potential. Embarrassed, Lekti pulled away and repeatedly apologized. From a distance, Riko had been waiting for her chance. She aimed her magical weapon, Athena, and fired. Kanata sensed the attack and managed to dodge, but the shot flew toward Lekti, who was standing near him. Kanata immediately pulled her aside and deflected the magical blast. Riko was stunned, realizing Kanata had actually reduced the strength of her shot before it could do any real harm. Kanata asked Lekti if she was alright, and she nodded. According to Kanata, it had been a good shot, and when an attack was too precise, it actually became easier to dodge. Riko wondered why that was the case, and Kanata explained that her aim was not bad, but her intention to strike felt as obvious as sending a telegram. He then asked if Lekti and Riko had tried combining their movements while flying. Lekti admitted that she had been very scared. Riko pointed out that Lekti's movements were smoother compared to Mizora's, who always seemed restless and scattered wherever she was. Because of that, Riko said it was natural for her to try sensing with Lekti in order to land better shots. Kanata questioned why, if Riko could calculate things so thoroughly, she did not seem concerned about her own teammates. Riko claimed that she was a goddess, uninterested in ordinary human matters. Meanwhile, Mizora kept shouting while searching for Kanata. She was annoyed and exhausted since she still had not found him. Later that night, while Mizora, Lekti, and Riko were changing clothes together, Mizora admitted she was upset because they had failed to catch Kanata, even though there were 3 of them. Lekti apologized, saying her skills were not good enough. When she noticed Mizora struggling to unfasten her bra, Lekti helped her. Mizora thanked her and said it was not her fault, admitting she might not have given Lekti any useful directions. Riko then commented that fire team leaders should be able to assess the battlefield properly, unlike what Misora had done. She also contrasted that with herself, who she described as beautiful. Misora became irritated by Riko's words. Riko told Misora not to feel down since it was only natural that she was taller and more developed physically, claiming that was what separated ordinary people from a goddess. Misora replied that she was not upset and that such things did not matter to her. However, when she noticed Lecty's figure, she was surprised and started crying, not believing how Lecty could be more developed than her. Riko reassured her that such differences had nothing to do with someone's abilities as a sky wizard. Misora was touched by her words, but at the same time, seeing both Riko and Lecty made her feel uneasy. What bothered her even more was when Riko playfully described Misora's body in a mocking way, which made Misora scold her. Lecty quickly tried to calm both of them down. Kanata had realized that Misora had a hot temper and often lost sight of her surroundings, while Lecty's lack of confidence caused problems whenever she faced enemies. Riko, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of Lecty, but the distance between her and her teammates was too wide. To Kanata, they were like puzzle pieces shaped oddly, but he thought it would be amusing if he could somehow fit them together. Riko, however, refused to accept Misora as the leader of the fire team since as a goddess, she did not want to be under Misora's command. Misora argued that she was the one who had started the fire team, so it was her responsibility to lead. Riko countered that being first in line did not automatically earn respect. At that moment, Lecty tried her best to calm the two of them down as they argued. Soon after, Kanata opened the door to the changing room to announce the next stage of their training. Unfortunately, he accidentally caught sight of the three girls and only their undergarments. In shock, they immediately activated their weapons and accused Kanata of being inappropriate. That day, the members of Fire Team E601 were in the middle of a special training session with Kanata. The training was tough as becoming stronger was never easy. During the session, Riko admitted that she had no intention of joining in because she believed herself to be like a goddess. She left the room right away. Misora tried to stop her, but Riko ignored her. Kanata told them to let Riko be on her own, then asked Misora and Lecty if they were ready for the special training. Both Misora and Lecty agreed to continue. Later that day, Kanata brought Lecty to a clothing store. With her face turning red, Lecty said that she had finished changing into the outfit Kanata had chosen. When Kanata pulled open the curtain of the changing booth, Lecty was startled. Kanata wondered why she was so embarrassed since she actually looked beautiful in the maid outfit. Lecty asked if it was really necessary to spend their fire team's budget on a maid costume. Kanata explained that the outfit was important for their training. Before leaving the shop, he told Lecty that her task for the day was to hand out flyers while wearing the maid outfit. Lecty was shocked, but she had no choice but to do it. That afternoon, Lecty began her task. When two students walked by, she tried to call out to them, but she couldn't bring herself to speak clearly. The students thought she was acting strange and walked away. Not long after, 3 male students came over. They were stunned to see her dressed as a maid and quickly surrounded her. The flyers scattered to the ground and Lecty politely encouraged them to take one. The students happily picked up the discount coupons and thanked her. Lecty was surprised that she had actually managed to hand them out. Meanwhile, Kanata asked Misora to find out Riko's weaknesses. According to him, everyone had at least 2 weak points, and even if Riko tried to act calm, there was a chance she had some surprising vulnerabilities. Misora seemed reluctant about this request. Even though she didn't get along with Riko, she didn't want to lower herself to spying. Suddenly, Kanata covered her mouth because he had noticed Riko walking nearby. In the process, he accidentally touched her chest and quickly apologized, saying he hadn't realized it. Misora was offended, especially when Kanata's words made it sound like he hadn't noticed anything because she was too small. Kanata urged her to stop arguing and follow Riko. That day, Riko went shopping for clothes. Through the reflection in the store's glass, she noticed Misora tailing her. She immediately approached and asked what Misora was doing. Misora was shocked that Riko had caught on so easily and wondered if she had some kind of special ability. Then Misora realized her reflection in the glass had given her away. Riko asked if Misora had feelings for her. Misora was at a loss for words and couldn't come up with an excuse. Riko told her she needed to shop, but Misora insisted she wanted to join her. Suspicious, Riko pinched Misora's cheek, worried that maybe someone had cast an illusion spell on her, since it was strange for Misora to suddenly want to spend time with her. Still, she allowed Misora to tag along. Elsewhere, Kanata was drinking coffee outside when Lecty approached and handed him a flyer. He asked if she had completed her task. Lecty admitted that at first she had been extremely nervous, but afterwards she managed to gain a little courage. Kanata then told her it was time for the second step, asking her to start working at the cafe. He walked away while Lecty insisted she couldn't possibly do it. Suddenly, several customers called her over to take their orders. With so many people waiting, Lekti panicked and shouted out for Kanada's help, saying she couldn't handle it on her own. That same afternoon, a young man named Real was walking while looking at his tablet, mumbling that most of the armored insects seemed to come from the Arcanar class. Without realizing it, he bumped into Yuri, who was carrying a drink. She immediately apologized as the drink spilled, soaking Real's pants. Feeling extremely guilty, Yuri apologized over and over. She quickly knelt down, trying to wipe off the spill. The stain didn't seem to go away, and Yuri grew flustered, unsure what else to do. To her surprise, Real's heart raced as he watched her, his face turning red. Yuri apologized again, worried the drink might leave a permanent stain on his clothes. Just then, Riko took the handkerchief from her, saying she could handle it herself. A moment later, Chloe called out to Yuri. Real told her not to worry and urged her to go meet Chloe. Yuri apologized one more time before leaving in a hurry. Real watched her go and only then realized he was still holding on to her handkerchief. That afternoon, Riko went to a bookstore and bought a philosophy book. Mizora asked if Riko was really sure about buying it since the book looked boring. Riko thought Mizora probably didn't understand the joy of pursuing truth yet, and she even called Mizora a child. Mizora admitted it when she was told that. Then Riko invited Mizora to the next store. Mizora didn't expect that Riko still hadn't finished shopping. After that, they went to a doll shop. Riko absolutely loved the sheep doll she found and hugged it right away. Mizora had only just discovered that Riko liked cute things. Riko looked embarrassed and quickly took the shopping item from Mizora's hands. Riko said they needed to use their time efficiently. Mizora began to wonder if Riko liking cute things could be considered a weakness. That afternoon, Lekti was serving customers, but a few male students started teasing her with uncomfortable comments. They laughed, which made Lekti feel very embarrassed, and she quickly walked away. Lloyd saw everything and recognized Lekti as Kanada's student. At that moment, Lekti sat alone, saying she couldn't do it. Suddenly, Mizora arrived and asked what Lekti was doing there. Lekti immediately hugged Mizora and cried and told her everything. Mizora couldn't believe the kind of special training they were getting. Lekti asked if Mizora's training was more normal than hers. Mizora laughed and admitted it. She said she was willing to help Lekti if needed, and that made Lekti happy. Not long after, Mizora changed into a stylish bunny girl costume she didn't expect Kanada had prepared. Customers were surprised by Kanada's plan and how Mizora looked. One of them placed an order, and Mizora gladly served them with a friendly attitude. The students ordered iced tea and iced coffee. Lekti felt nervous seeing the students staring at Mizora, making her uncomfortable. Lloyd called Lekti over to pour water. She poured it into his glass, but her hands were shaking. Lloyd said it seemed like talking to others was difficult for Lekti. Surprised, Lekti accidentally spilled a drink, quickly apologized, and wiped it up. Lloyd told her that when she found something difficult, that was exactly where her weakness lay. He encouraged Lekti to trust her instructor. He also reminded her she had a good friend she could follow as an example. Mizora was serving customers cheerfully and efficiently, working hard, and it amazed Lekti. Just as she wanted to thank Lloyd, she noticed he had already left, leaving a tip on the table. Soon after, another customer called her, and Lekti prepared herself to work as hard as Mizora. Freyon saw the group of male students and asked Chloe what was happening. At that time, Mizora and Lekti were working smoothly and confidently. Lekti even looked more enthusiastic than before, to the point that Mizora asked what happened to her. Lekti admitted she felt more motivated because of Mizora. Mizora didn't quite understand what she meant, but she was happy to hear it. Seeing them, Freyon commented on how impressive the two waitresses were and even looked forward to what Kanada planned to do next. That evening, Mizora and Lekti met with Kanada. Mizora questioned the kind of training Kanada had been giving them and asked Lekti to voice her concerns. Lekti asked if Kanada knew about her social anxiety, and Mizora was surprised by her question. Kanada explained that Lekti's sword style was the Art Eisenach, a twin magic sword style created by the master swordsman Albert Eisenach. Lekti was shocked Kanada knew about her family. According to Kanada, only those who had gone through strict training and proven their true skills could carry the Eisenach name. If during yesterday's fight Lekti had looked into Kanada's eyes, it would have been a much more interesting match. Unfortunately, she couldn't do it, so she wasn't able to show her true ability. Lekti admitted she couldn't make eye contact or go to places where many people were watching her. She would get nervous and fail to do things properly. She confessed that she hated that side of herself. Kanada told Lekti not to worry about it because no one was ever completely satisfied with themselves. He gently patted her head and explained that at that moment, Lekti already knew what she needed, and the rest was simply about trying her best to improve. Lekti smiled, her face turning red, while Mizora also patted her head and encouraged her. Lekti felt so grateful to Mizora because thanks to her support, she was able to push herself harder. Kanada then asked Mizora how she had handled the training he gave her. Misora admitted that she had failed because she could not figure out Riko's weaknesses. She says she was surprised to learn that Riko actually read difficult philosophy books, even though she also enjoyed funny and lighthearted things. Kanata praised her, saying she had made progress, and then went to buy some ice cream. Misora wondered why Kanata said that when in her own eyes she had only failed. Soon after, Kanata gave the ice cream to Lekti and Misora as a reward for their hard work. Both of them happily ate it and really enjoyed it. Misora admitted that she did not know much about Riko, let alone her weaknesses, and she had not even realized that Lekti had stage fright. Because of this, she felt like she had failed as the leader of the fire team. Kanata reassured her by saying that she had learned something through the experience, and that itself was progress. He then asked Lekti to try the same kind of training she had done that day, and she agreed. Misora also agreed to keep observing Riko, but Kanata explained that the purpose of the training that day was to make Misora realize her own weaknesses. Overcoming those weaknesses, however, required a completely different kind of training, and he wondered whether he had failed to make that clear to her. Misora grew frustrated and, without meaning to, dropped her ice cream on the ground. She then cried over her ice cream being wasted. That night, Kanata was sitting in front of his computer when Chloe suddenly floated up behind him. However, Kanata had already noticed her presence and scolded her for entering the boys' dorm at night. Chloe simply smiled, saying she only wanted to do what she used to do in the past. Her eyes then wandered to a photo of Misora, the rabbit-eared girl, displayed on Kanata's computer. Kanata explained that Misora's reserve of magical power was greater than most rank of wizards, but unfortunately she was terrible with the sword, which made her waste much of her potential. Chloe then asked what Kanata planned to do in order to teach her. The next day, Kanata met with the members of Fire Team E601 and asked Misora to stop focusing on the magical sword cannon formation. Instead, he suggested she should position herself to support the magic cannon from mid-range because she had no natural talent for swordsmanship, while her flight magic and magical reserves were far more impressive. Kanata said his goal was simply to make the best use of her abilities. Misora refused to do that, saying she did not care, and even if it could make her stronger, she would not change her path. Kanata told her to stop being selfish, since the magical sword cannon was unbalanced, outdated, and too difficult for a beginner to handle. Misora denied being selfish, saying she was simply doing her best, but still rejected the idea of moving away from the sword cannon style. Kanata said that no matter how hard she tried, putting effort into the same approach would only produce the same results. Misora realized she had misjudged him, since she thought Kanata might have been a capable instructor. In her eyes, Kanata clearly did not understand her at all, so it was better if he stopped telling her what to do. Frustrated, Misora stormed out of the room. Seeing this, Lekti immediately ran after her. One day in the past, the Beetle Demon army returned and the Sky Wizards were already standing guard on the front lines. They complained about the overwhelming number of enemies they had to face. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward with courage and incredible skill, raising her sword against the swarm. She swiftly dodged the Beetle Demon's attacks and struck them down one after another. Even when a giant Beetle Demon appeared and launched its attack at her, she continued to evade. Once her sword was fully charged with magic, she unleashed her powerful technique, Strike Blaster, destroying the giant Beetle Demon's body in an instant. With that, the rest of the Beetle army was wiped out. This woman was admired and relied on by many. Her name was Sochi, the mother of Misora. Since childhood, Misora had always been proud of her mother's strength. But at that time, all she could do was miss her, because Sochi had already passed away. When Kanata asked her to change positions, Misora refused. She wanted to be just like her mother and had made up her mind not to give up. That same day, Lekti went into her room to deliver some coffee. When the door opened, she was surprised to see that the one who had ordered the coffee was Lloyd. Lloyd praised Lekti for her hard work, leaving her stunned. Inside the room with Lloyd were Chloe and Freyan. Freya noticed the girl who had just brought the coffee and pointed out that she was a member of Fire Team E601. Freya then asked if Lekti was still training like that. Chloe suggested that if Freyan was really curious, she should ask Kanata directly. However, Freyan doubted he would answer so easily. After delivering the coffee, Lekti walked down the hallway and saw Riko stepping out of the room. She quickly caught up to her and invited Riko to join their training. But Riko, who often called herself a goddess, flatly refused, saying she had no time for sweaty practice sessions. Lekti explained that Misora hadn't been coming to school for several days, so she didn't know what to do alone. Riko brushed her off, saying that as a heavenly goddess, she didn't concern herself with such trivial problems. Hearing this, Lekti said it seemed she would have to rely on Kanata instead. Riko assumed Lekti was placing too much faith in someone she still considered a traitor. Lekti admitted she had been worried at first, but now she understood that Kanata truly meant to take their training seriously. Meanwhile, Real from the regular division's medical department was sitting on a park bench. He was practicing how to return a handkerchief to Yuri and properly thank her. Before long, he noticed Yuri walking up to Kanata. Yuri pointed out that Kanata had been training the girls for several days. Kanata was surprised she knew about that. Yuri explained that it was obvious since Fire Team E-601 hadn't been assigned to practice in the airspace, and it was easy for her to notice. Kanata responded that maybe it was better that way. Yuri grew frustrated, pointing out that Kanata was the only one on the special fire team with free time, and she worried that he might betray Fire Team E-601 too. Kanata said he needed to head home since he didn't have time to spare. Yuri insisted their talk wasn't over, but Kanata still left. Real, who had witnessed everything, started trembling and accidentally dropped the handkerchief without realizing it. Later that afternoon, Kanata visited a small cafe looking for Mizora. As soon as he walked in, the shop owner greeted him. Kanata explained that he wasn't there as a customer. Mizora, surprised, asked what he was doing at the cafe. Kanata was relieved to see that she was safe. Mizora, however, expressed her irritation toward him. The cafe owner immediately scolded her for being rude to a guest. Mizora told her father not to interfere with her business. Kanata was surprised to find out that the cafe owner was actually Mizora's father, Gail, since the two didn't look very much alike. Gail laughed and said Mizora resembled her mother. Mizora frowned and hurried into her room. Gail apologized to Kanata, saying their family wasn't perfect. As Kanata noticed a framed family photo hanging on the wall, he complimented Gail's wife, saying she was beautiful, and it was true. Mizora did look just like her mother. Gail said that the only thing left of his wife was that photograph. While talking, he served the specialty of his shop, the famous steak. Kanata explained that he did not come as a customer. After tasting the steak, he immediately praised the dish. Gail laughed and mentioned that steak had been the favorite meal of his late wife. He then shared that his wife, Soki, was once a sky wizard. At the same time, Mizora quickly changed her clothes and left. Gail talked about how Mizora had been skipping school for several days, but he admitted he could not bring himself to scold her. He asked Kanata if he knew what was going on with Mizora. Before Kanata answered, he asked Gail why Mizora seemed so obsessed with the canon-style magic sword. Gail became convinced that Kanata was not just a casual acquaintance of Mizora. Kanata then admitted that he was Mizora's instructor, and his job was to give her the chance to grow stronger. Gail explained that people used to call Sochi the greatest canon-style magic swordswoman in the floating city where they once lived, but one day, Sochi left for a mission and never returned. Since then, both Gail and Mizora gradually began to lose their memories of her. Mizora wanted to master the canon-style sword because she did not want to forget her mother. At that time, Mizora went to a place full of ruins, activated her weapon, and promised herself that she would never give up. In the past, there was a day when Mizora had been overjoyed to welcome her mother home. Sochi had missed her daughter deeply and lifted Mizora high into the air with excitement. Gail confessed that he often worried about Sochi and could barely sleep at night, even when he tried to nap during the day. Sochi admitted she often felt lonely and could only comfort herself by eating multiple times a day. Their reunion was filled with warmth, and soon Mizora found herself happily standing between her parents again. When Mizora asked her to stop, Sochi playfully teased her daughter. Not long after, the neighbors gathered and mentioned that they had watched a live broadcast of Sochi in action. They praised her for destroying an entire army of Beal demons and expressed their gratitude since, thanks to her, their city of Iris remained safe. Mizora felt a strong sense of pride in her mother's abilities. When they returned home, Gail cooked steak for breakfast, but Mizora thought the dish was too heavy for the morning meal. Meanwhile, Sochi had trouble managing house chores and even flooded their home while trying to do laundry. Mizora was surprised at how poorly her mother estimated the water level. When Sochi tried cleaning, she accidentally damaged the wall. Mizora scolded her out of frustration. Soon after, information arrived that a group of Arcanar and Chimera-class beetles had begun to attack. Sochi immediately prepared to leave. She said her farewells and got ready to head into battle. Mizora felt heartbroken, since they had only just been reunited. Her face showed such sadness that Sochi almost could not bear to leave. Gail gently patted Mizora's head to comfort her. Mizora then asked her mother to be careful while working. From that day, Mizora continued waiting for her mother's return. When Sochi finally came home, Mizora was overwhelmed with emotion, cried tears of relief, and hugged her mother tightly, as if she never wanted to be apart again. That night, Sochi took Mizora flying with her. Mizora was excited and commented on how small their city looked from above. Sochi pointed out their home from the sky, explaining that even though the houses seemed tiny, many people were living there. She told Mizora that her duty as a sky wizard was to protect the people in the city, as well as to keep Mizora and Gail safe. Suddenly, a warning came from an airship instructing Sochi to stop. Mizora remarked that they probably needed a permit to fly. Sochi realized it too, but chose to escape playfully instead. The next morning, Sochi was about to leave for work again. Misora asked her mother to always be careful. Gail promised to cook steak for her when she returned. Sochi then said goodbye, and Misora kept cheering her on. Inspired by her mother, Misora began practicing sword techniques, hoping to show her progress to Sochi when she came home again. Misora met her father, Gail, who told her that he had prepared some boiled meat for her. But Misora asked about steak, and more than that, she wanted to know if her mother had not come home yet. To her surprise, Gail answered that Misora did not have a mother. Misora immediately left and started asking people around the town about her mother, but none of them knew her at all. According to them, Misora and her father had always lived alone together, and no one had ever heard of a sky wizard in Iris Town. Not long after, two officers arrived carrying a sword. They explained that Sochi had tried to protect everyone. She had gone forward alone against the enemy. She was the strongest and known as the noble cannon-type magic shooter. Misora remembered her mother's message that she would fight to protect the people, as well as Misora and her father. Misora took hold of the sword and promised that she would become a sky wizard like her mother. At that time, Misora was training alone. She wondered why she could never win, and she kept striking down the iron target in front of her until she finally fell. She kept questioning why all her efforts never paid off, but she refused to give up for her mother's sake. Soon after, Kanata came to her. Later, Kanata and Misora visited the Hill of Hope, the resting place of fallen sky wizards. Kanata had heard that Misora visited this place every day. Misora was sure that her father had told Kanata about it, which upset her. She felt that Kanata was intruding into her privacy. Misora even said that both Kanata and her father were the worst. Kanata asked her not to blame her father because since she had never spoken about it, her father had been worried. Kanata asked why she was so fixated on the cannon sword, and that was why he had chosen this place. He wanted Misora to swear at her mother's grave to give up on the cannon sword, because she could never be as strong as her mother. Misora grew angry and told Kanata to stop acting like he knew everything. For her, when the cannon sword was entrusted to her, it also meant her mother had been entrusted to her. Yet everyone else, even her father, did not remember her mother. Misora felt that a traitor like Kanata would never understand. Kanata then asked what she thought hope truly was. Misora said it was to protect the people in the town. But Kanata explained that the fallen sky wizards did not want to be forgotten, and what they truly wanted was to protect the ones they loved. That was what allowed them to face the demon beetle army, and surely Misora's mother had felt the same. Kanata asked Misora if her mother's purpose as a sky wizard had been for the cannon sword itself, or to protect people. Earlier, Gail had told Kanata that when Sochi died, he felt nothing, and he feared that if Misora died, he might also feel nothing, which terrified him. Kanata told him that if Misora stayed stubborn, her risk of dying would only increase, and in time, people might forget her. Misora realized how selfish she had been, but she still refused to give up. She wanted to protect people with the cannon sword. She believed that if she could become a great cannon-type mage, something impossible like the natural recovery of lost memories could happen, and she could be the first to restore everyone's memories. That way, she would not die in vain. Seeing how serious she was, Kanata laughed, admitting he never thought Misora could be this reckless. But he liked people like her. Because of that, Kanata decided to give her some guidance on how to become a better cannon-type mage. He understood how strong her determination was, but he warned her to be prepared because the path she had chosen could be worse than death itself. He asked once more if Misora was sure about taking that path. Misora firmly stated that she was ready to face any risk. Kanata then asked her to work hard for Sochi and for the sword, and to swear that she would become a cannon-type mage even greater than Sochi, strong enough to protect the people and herself. As her instructor, Kanata would help her bear the burden. That was why he wanted her to become stronger, and Misora agreed. The next day, Misora and Lekti prepared for training. Misora apologized to Lekti for making her worry. Kanata arrived and asked them to begin right away. Lekti immediately flew high into the sky. Misora looked at Kanata's face and shyly thanked him before leaving. Kanata could only smile at her. Meanwhile, Riko was watching them from below, and it seemed like she was starting to take interest in Kanata's way of teaching. While Kanata was training Fireteam E601, he learned more about each member's strengths. Lekti's Eisenach twin sword style was extremely powerful, allowing her to fight with two blades at once. Meanwhile, Misora's cannon-style magic sword could strike down nearby enemies from a long distance, an incredible weapon, though one that wasn't easy to master. That morning, Riko was enjoying her dream when Freyan's voice woke her up. Riko sat up, saying Freyan had disturbed her sleep. She complained that a goddess like herself was tied down by meaningless school rules. After that, Riko got out of bed, took a shower, and prepared for school. At lunchtime, some students chose to sit far from Kanata, calling him a traitor. Kanata was eating with Lloyd, who admitted he was impressed by him. Kanata was surprised to hear such words from Lloyd. Then Yuri appeared, wondering why Lloyd didn't ask Kanata how he could stand tall as someone hated throughout Miss Gun. Kanata ignored Yuri and told Lloyd about their upcoming opponent instead. Feeling brushed off, Yuri commented that the fire team Kanata was training was too weak to even start a proper fight, and since they also had a so-called traitor, she believed there was no way Kanata could win. Kanata responded by saying it was actually a good thing, since his team wouldn't feel extra pressure that way. Irritated, Yuri asked if that was the kind of excuse losers made and wondered what kind of teaching Kanata was giving them. Kanata replied that his fire team simply had a better chance of winning this way. Hearing that, Yuri was reminded of when they once fought together against beetle-like demons. She hoped Kanata hadn't changed completely. Yuri left and Lloyd followed her to try and comfort her. Not long after, Riko arrived, commenting that she was surprised at how much Kanata could eat. She then shared that while showering earlier, she had seen something beautiful. Kanata wondered if she had seen a ghost or something similar. Riko smiled and explained that the beauty she saw was none other than herself in the mirror. She thought that no one in the world could be as beautiful as she was. Kanata laughed and said Riko was truly amusing. When she was younger, Riko had been mocked by her friends for being so full of herself, calling her as beautiful as a goddess. Curious, Riko asked Kanata what documents he was reading. Kanata explained that they were about Fire Team E571, the team that would be E601's next opponents. Its members included Ami, Shayla, and Beach. Kanata said that if Lekti and Mizora could complete their training, and they might have a chance to fight properly. Riko, however, admitted she had no intention of training with Kanata. He told her to do as she wished. Riko believed that a goddess like her didn't need to work hard or sweat for anything. Meanwhile, Lekti and Mizora were in the changing room. They were taking turns applying patches on each other's backs, since their training had become increasingly intense. Mizora admitted that the training was paying off as she could feel her skills gradually improving. She was confident that under such circumstances, they might have a chance in the next match. Still, there were things that worried them. Not long after, Kanata called out to ask if they were done changing. Surprised, Mizora accused him of acting like a creep, but Kanata calmly said he wasn't interested in peeking at kids. He told them he wanted to treat them to ice cream as a reward for their hard work. Afterwards, Mizora and Lekti went to see Riko. Mizora directly asked her to join their training. She didn't want to be called a loser anymore. She didn't want to keep losing, and more importantly, she wanted them to face things together. Riko reminded them that Lekti had already asked her before, and her answer was still the same. Riko said that as a goddess, she had nothing to gain from training. Lekti disagreed, believing that Kanata would definitely teach Riko something valuable. Mizora, though reluctant to admit it, agreed that Kanata had the ability to make them stronger. Riko then remembered what Lekti had said about Kanata truly caring about them, as well as Kanata's own words telling her to do whatever she liked. She said that since Kanata wasn't trying to train her directly, she saw no reason to participate in training. Mizora pleaded with her, saying that even if Riko didn't join the training, she still wanted her to fight alongside them in the match. Riko admitted that she wasn't interested in embarrassing herself by joining the match because she knew she would definitely lose. Lekti didn't expect Riko to say that, and Mizora even kneeled in front of Riko, asking her to join their match. Suddenly, Kanata appeared and pulled Mizora up to her feet, surprised by what she was doing. Meanwhile, Frayn informed Chloe that the D-ranked fire team had weakened during patrol. At that time, a Chimera had appeared, and Frayn was determined not to let it get close to Miss Gun, since they were commanders of the small beetle-type fiends. Chloe told her not to worry because handling that situation was the responsibility of the special fire team. Frayn then asked about Kanata's fire team, pointing out that the popularity ranking match was coming soon. She had already asked earlier about Fire Team E601. Back with Kanata, he released Mizora and explained that Riko would never refuse to act unless she had something on her mind. He said that fighting when you already knew you would lose wasn't exactly cool, but complaining about not even trying was definitely not his style. Riko was shocked and told him that he knew nothing about her. Kanata gently patted Mizora's head and said that was why he would leave the key to victory in her hands. The next morning, Riko once again dreamed about her childhood, when she used to chase after Frayn but could never catch up. She woke up hugging her stuffed toy, upset that she had fallen into the same nightmare again. Still feeling sleepy, she went off to school. That day, Yuri was practicing with her staff while Real watched her from afar using binoculars. He couldn't believe that someone as beautiful as Yuri was associating with Kanata, the so-called traitor. Real was convinced that Kanata must have deceived her. Riko spotted Real and called him a sneaky stalker, which startled him so much that he immediately ran away. Up in the sky, Kanata and Mizora had already begun training. Kanata demonstrated a move to her, then activated his weapon known as the Gladius, a destructive sword used as a chronos. Mysora was amazed by it. Kanata pulled the trigger on his sword, releasing a burst of magical energy that caused a massive explosion. He called it the Sword Magic Cannon Battle Art Strike Blaster, and this was the technique Mysora needed to learn. Mysora couldn't believe she was about to practice such a powerful move. Kanata warned her not to release too much magical energy all at once. He instructed her to concentrate her magic within her body and channel it into her sword. He admitted honestly that her swordsmanship and shooting skills were still amateur, but that didn't bother him. That was exactly why he wanted to teach her the fundamentals and guide her through this technique. Kanata assisted her in performing the move, and Mysora asked if this was truly her key to victory. Kanata explained that her strongest asset was her vast magical capacity, which allowed her to pour everything into one decisive shot. A single strike that could decide the battle. That was their only plan. He then gave her the signal to fire. Mysora launched the Striker Blaster and was thrilled when she succeeded. But soon she realized just how heavy the burden of channeling that much magical power was, and she wondered why Kanata looked so calm about it. Kanata explained that he had added this training to regular cannon practice, but reminded her that she could only manage 3 shots per day. Mysora noticed that Kanata seemed to be showing signs of magical exhaustion. Kanata gently patted her head again, explaining that the move was meant to clear the path for her and her teammates to advance. Mysora, flustered, grew annoyed at him for putting his hand on her head and demanded that he remove it. Meanwhile, Riko was quietly observing them from below. She was convinced that with Mizora's hidden strength, the tide of the battle could definitely turn around. At that moment, Lekti was also practicing her twin sword magic against Kanata. Kanata mentioned that Lekti seemed distracted and asked if she hadn't gained something like Mizora had. He explained that the divine sword Eisenach had been sharpened and improved by its descendants, and the style of twin sword magic had already been embedded within Lekti. Their training was meant to help her bring it out. Kanata then asked Lekti to show him everything she had learned. With enthusiasm, Lekti demonstrated her skills, but unfortunately, she couldn't land a single hit on Kanata. Still, Kanata pointed out that she had made significant progress, especially with her ability to deliver a straight strike without hesitation. Lekti admitted that she only felt panic but not nervous. Kanata gently patted her head and told her she had done well. At that moment, Lekti's face turned red with embarrassment. Riko wondered if Kanata really needed to touch the girls so casually. She noticed that Mizora and Lekti had both gotten stronger, and she questioned whether she could reach their level if she also trained under him. Suddenly, Kanata disappeared from her sight, and she grew curious about where he had gone. To her surprise, he appeared right behind her. Shocked, Riko asked why he was standing there. Kanata asked if she needed Mizora and Lekti to activate her clairvoyance. Riko admitted it, surprised that Kanata knew about her ability. Kanata explained that clairvoyance was one of the highest-ranked detection skills, which allowed Riko to observe from a distance. Riko asked if the movement Kanata had taught Mizora was what he considered the key to victory, and he confirmed it. Riko pointed out that if Mizora could master it, she would be strong, but the move itself wouldn't work in a real match without someone holding the front line and another guarding the rear. Kanata agreed, adding that Riko's ability to see quickly was the most vital element for their fire team. Her skill involved identifying, analyzing, being aware of the battlefield, and making decisions. According to Kanata, Lekti and Mizora were more valuable than Riko's clairvoyance. Riko questioned why he only mentioned Mizora as the key to victory. Kanata then clarified that the true key to victory was Mizora, Lekti, and Riko together. Riko denied it, reminding him that he had never pushed her to train or shown any real interest in her. Kanata admitted that he was simply waiting for Mizora and Lekti to catch up, while Riko already possessed a gift that could be called divine. Only then did Riko begin to understand his perspective. She was stunned when Kanata told her that he truly needed and wanted her as part of the team. Her face turned bright red and she couldn't understand why he said that to her. Kanata explained that he could help her train in strategy, but the most important thing was her determination to win. He asked if she wanted to be called a loser for the rest of her life or not. It was entirely her choice. Riko thought deeply before making her decision. Meanwhile, Mizora and Lekti were flying together. Mizora mentioned that she didn't see Riko in the fire team's room, and Lekti wondered if Riko had really skipped the training. Unexpectedly, Riko appeared before them. She explained that she had pushed through difficulties just to make it to training, and she didn't expect Mizora and Lekti to keep her waiting. Both Mizora and Lekti were surprised that Riko had actually shown up. Kanata thought to himself that the key to victory had just arrived right on time. The day of the match finally came. Fireteam E601 was set to face Fireteam E571. The members of E571 arrogantly claimed that defeating E601 would be easy and even boasted about preparing a victory party in advance. Misora refused to accept being looked down on like that. Riko remarked that they had the attitude of people who always belittled others, and Misora quickly pointed out that Riko behaved that way too. Lecty admitted she felt very nervous. Kanata encouraged them, and Fireteam E601 prepared to begin their match. But suddenly, an alarm went off announcing that a swarm of beetle-like demon forces was approaching Miss Gun. All D-ranked fire teams were ordered to prepare for a surprise attack. At that moment, the beetle demons were flying toward the city. The Arcanar forces, the smallest type of beetle demons, attacked in swarms, while the Mantis class, like Proshin, was one step larger and far more dangerous. The swarm of insect-like demons arrived to attack Miss Gun, and ordinary unarmed students were told to evacuate to the nearest shelter. The floating city of Miss Gun activated its protective barrier. At that moment, Freyan organized all squads to prepare for battle. She instructed the formation of 7 groups made up of A-ranked fire teams, assigning them to defend key areas. She also asked Fireteam E to assist with evacuation. Meanwhile, Misora, Riko, and Kanata had already been helping people evacuate. Riko asked why Kanata was still there since he was once an ace, and wondered why he was not the front lines defeating the enemy. Kanata admitted that he had a lot of responsibilities, which made Riko curious about what tasks he was actually handling. Misora then noticed that Lecty was missing, but soon Lecty appeared carrying a little girl. Misora asked her to bring the child to the shelter. Kanata then spotted the insect demons and was shocked that the enemy had arrived. In an instant, Chloe launched a powerful attack that destroyed the demons, and Yuri praised her impressive strike. Chloe was confident that Yuri could have done the same if she still used her spear, but Yuri admitted she no longer did because it no longer felt right for her. Soon after, Lloyd delivered troubling news. A large force of insect demons had completely overrun one of their defensive areas. Both Chloe and Yuri were stunned to hear this. It turned out that another group of insect demons was trying to break through Miss Gun's defenses. Within moments, they managed to damage the barrier wall and break inside. Around 300 enemies flooded in. Freyan ordered all students who had been helping with evacuation to get ready to fight. She reminded them not to let even a single demon occupy Miss Gun. The demons advanced toward Misora and her team. The little girl with Lecty cried in fear, and Lecty did her best to calm her down. Seeing this, Misora remembered her mother's words about fighting to protect both people and family. Inspired, Misora shouted that she would protect everyone. She activated her weapon and tried to perform the new moves she had learned from Kanata. Her first shot missed, which worried her, but she tried again. Thankfully, her second shot struck one of the demons. Lecty praised her, and Kanata noted that while Misora's accuracy was still off, her effort was good. Riko also pointed out that she had improved since at least her shot had landed. Kanata told Misora to keep going like that while the rest of them protected the child. Unexpectedly, Misora unleashed a full striker blaster shot that wiped out the entire swarm of demons. However, the blast also caused damage to parts of the city. Misora was shocked, and Riko could not believe she used a striker blaster in the middle of Miss Gun. The others began to blame her. Misora explained she had not intended to harm the city, and that it was an accident. Kanata then informed her that the blast even destroyed his father's cafe. Misora was horrified and screamed in distress. Meanwhile, reports showed that the enemy forces numbered around 10,000, while their fire team numbers had already dropped by 30%. According to Freyan, the only option left was to attack the insect demon commander directly. At the same time, Kanata and his team had safely reunited the little girl with her family. The situation grew worse when a Chimera Deneb was detected in Block 24. Freyan deployed several fire teams to push it back. After Fireteam E571 launched its attack, they managed to bring it down. But to everyone's surprise, there was more than one Chimera Deneb because of the sheer size of the demon army. Kanata and the members of Fireteam E601 then started planning their next move. Riko suggested they needed to track down the unconfirmed Chimera Deneb. Kanata agreed, and Misora asked what they should do next. Riko admitted she might have to reveal a glimpse of her true ability. She put on her glasses, explaining that activating her clairvoyance ability made her more focused, though she joked that it might lessen her beauty. Kanata disagreed, saying her beauty did not fade even when she wore them. Hearing this, Riko blushed. Soon after, she detected movements from the insect demons in Block 68. At the same time, Yuri, Chloe, and Lloyd saw many more demons heading toward Miss Gun. Yuri asked if they should retreat, but Chloe said they would not make it in time. Lloyd added that he could not simply let the enemy pursue them unchecked. Yuri mentioned that reports showed multiple Chimera Deneb approaching, and she grew deeply worried for Miss Gun's people. Chloe told her not to worry, since Miss Gun was protected by Kanata. Yuri argued that someone like Kanata would probably run away, but Chloe insisted that Yuri should trust him. In her view, Kanata would never allow the people of Miss Gun to get hurt. As soon as the Beetle Demon army appeared, Kanata told Fireteam E601 to go after Chimera and Deneb. The three of them were shocked by the order, especially since this was their very first real battle. Rico thought Kanata's command was way too extreme. Kanata explained that their training wasn't about throwing their lives away. His words struck a chord with them. He said they trained to survive, and by doing so, they could protect others. He believed the three of them could do it, and as their instructor, he guaranteed it. Misora admitted that even though Kanata could be pervy sometimes, he was still their instructor. He trusted them, but she trusted Rico and Lekti too. She encouraged them both to go for it. Lekti confessed that she trained as a sky wizard to protect people, so she wanted to protect everyone in Miss Gun. Rico pointed out that this could also be the perfect chance for them to show off in front of Freyan, though she simply referred to her as that woman. Misora had no idea who Rico meant, but Kanata fired them up again, reminding them they were fighting to reclaim Miss Gun, a place that rightfully belonged to all of them. Meanwhile, Freyan was still monitoring everything from the information center, but not long after, her surveillance screens went dark. Kanata asked his fire team to carry out their plan. The first step was for Lekti to engage Arcanar in close combat. She quickly flew straight into the demon army. Since they weren't human, she didn't feel nervous or shy. With swift movements, Lekti cut down the beetle demons one after another with her twin swords. From a distance, Misora watched in awe, praising Lekti's incredible skills. Kanata also acknowledged the impressive twin sword magic technique of Eisenach. Not long after, more demons appeared from the opposite side. Just as planned, the second step was for Rico to support Misora by sniping enemies from long range. Misora was amazed by how accurate Rico's shots were. Kanata then gave Misora the signal to move. She rushed into the crowd of beetle demons. The third step of their strategy was for Misora to use her speed to close in on the enemy and unleash a strike blaster. She pulled it off, but the sheer number of enemies forced her to fire a second strike blaster. Unfortunately, more demons kept appearing. Kanata stepped in to clear out the beetle demons and told Misora to take a break. Lekti rushed her aside and skillfully cut down enemies one by one. Rico eliminated any demons that tried to sneak up on Misora. She sneered that these beetle demons were nothing more than low-level creatures, completely unworthy opponents for someone like her. Misora also began targeting them one by one. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was doing it for Rico, Lekti, and her mother. Gathering her resolve, Misora unleashed a third strike blaster. Kanata was confident her attack hit the mark, but suddenly, a massive strike was launched toward Misora. She couldn't dodge it in time, but Kanata jumped in and shielded her from the attack. At that moment, an enormous beetle demon monster appeared before them. Lekti asked if that was Chimera, but Rico admitted she had never seen a type like that before. The giant demon fired its attacks, destroying buildings and sending debris flying at Lekti and Rico. Kanata said Misora's earlier shot had been good, but the demon had managed to deflect it. Realizing the fight couldn't drag on, Kanata admitted he hadn't expected something like this monster to show up. Misora told him not to hold back, but she also knew his magic reserves were limited. Kanata revealed he had no choice but to step in. Since this wasn't a normal enemy, he activated his weapon, and a chilling aura surrounded his body. He warned that what he was about to do wasn't something anyone should ever try to copy, and he didn't want Misora to end up fighting this way. The wind around him roared violently. He ordered Misora to retreat because it was too dangerous. As soon as he moved, every beetle demon around him vanished instantly. Misora couldn't understand what Kanata had just done. The massive demon launched a barrage of attacks at him, but to Kanata, they were far too slow. He darted through the gaps with ease, though Misora worried deeply about him. She suspected that the power he was using wasn't ordinary magic. Moving at incredible speed, Kanata managed to slash the giant demon across its head. He knew he had to end the battle quickly. He soared high into the sky just as the demon began charging another massive attack aimed right at him. Misora panicked and begged him to get away, but Kanata declared that the fight would end when he decided to unleash his full strength. He then fired his own strike blaster, detonating the giant demon in an explosion so massive that Misora had never seen anything like it before. Lekti and Rico managed to escape from the rubble, and Rico asked if the giant beetle demon had been defeated. Kanata's powerless body fell downward, and Misora, Rico, and Lekti quickly ran to catch him. From a distance, Lloyd and Yuri witnessed the explosion. Lloyd believed that someone had managed to pull it off. Yuri did not understand who Lloyd was referring to. Chloe smiled and said it was the work of someone Yuri admired. Hearing that, Yuri's face turned red. Meanwhile, Freyan received a report that the Arcanar beetle demon had withdrawn from Miss Gun's airspace and the situation was safe again. She was surprised that the unknown Chimera had been defeated, but she had no idea who was responsible. At that moment, Rio rushed over to check if Kanata was alright, when suddenly something fell from above. It looked like the eye of a monster. Kanata was still weak, and Misora and Lekti were terrified at the thought of losing him. Not long after, Kanata stood up again, relieved to see the sky above Miss Gun clear once more. Lekti, Riko, and Misora's faces lit up with joy. Kanata told them that they were now ready to win the ranking battle, and the team was filled with confidence. The day of the battle arrived. Even though Kanata was still injured, he came to watch. Yuri greeted him and admitted she wanted to see how the students he trained would fight. Kanata asked why she seemed so cheerful, which made Yuri flustered and deny it. She had thought Kanata was helping with the evacuation during the attack, but was confused about why he ended up so badly hurt. Kanata simply said he must have tripped while escaping. The match began, and Kanata told Yuri not to be surprised because Fireteam E601 had grown much stronger. He smiled as he looked at Mizora, Lekti, and Riko, certain they could win. But when the match ended, Fireteam E601 had lost, and Kanata's face fell into disappointment. Fireteam E571 celebrated their victory, telling Mizora and the others to recognize their limits. Mysora looked downhearted. Lekti could barely believe they had lost, but Riko insisted she had made no mistakes. Yuri reminded Kanata that he had just said Fireteam E601 was stronger now. Kanata smiled and replied that setbacks were only natural. That evening, Freyan presented her suggestion to the Academy headmaster, who approved it. Freyan then told Chloe they could accelerate the Sky Wizards training program in a more realistic way by holding a new Academy tournament. Later, Mizora asked Riko how far her clairvoyance ability allowed her to see. Then Riko admitted that she could see things that were extremely far away, but not objects that were invisible. Beetle Demon balloons started attacking Mizora, and she shot them down one by one with her weapon. She was clearly annoyed because those beetle balloons seemed endless. Mizora shouted at Riko, asking her to back her up from behind. Unfortunately, Riko refused, saying she wouldn't help because Mizora's movements were too sloppy. That only made Mizora even more frustrated. At the same time, Lekti was busy popping the beetle demon balloons surrounding her. Mizora kept yelling at Riko to help, but Riko still refused, which pushed Lekti to ask both of them not to fight. From a distance, Kanata could only smile as he watched the three of them. Meanwhile, Lloyd, Chloe, and Yuri were meeting Freyan in her office. Freyan pointed out that the fire team under Kanata's guidance never seemed to change, since they kept extending their losing streak. She asked them to be honest about whether they were involved in the Chimera incident the other day. Lloyd admitted that the three of them obviously didn't defeat the new Chimera species. Freyan was convinced that Kanata and Fireteam E601 were the ones who had actually taken it down. According to her, Kanata then asked for forgiveness for destroying part of the city in the process, but Freyan refused because there were no witnesses or proof. For the sake of fairness toward the other fire teams, she decided to suspend Fireteam E601 as punishment for what happened. At that moment, Lekti, Mizora, and Riko were struggling, barely able to move while being surrounded by beetle demon balloons. Mizora once again asked Riko for help, but Riko still wouldn't move, saying it wasn't worth it to fight those balloons. Lekti pleaded with them to stop fighting. Kanata kept observing from afar, realizing he only had one more step left to take. Back in her office, Freyan began planning to release Kanata from his duties. Yuri agreed with that idea, saying that in her eyes, a traitor like Kanata could never be a proper instructor. Freyan then asked Chloe to bring Kanata to her office. When Lloyd asked if that was the only reason Freyan had called them, she revealed she also wanted to discuss the upcoming tournament with the three of them. After finishing their training session, Fireteam E601 changed clothes in the locker room. Mizora winced in pain, complaining about the bruises on her back. Riko bluntly said that was because Mizora's movements were a mess. To make her point, Riko touched Lekti's back, showing there were no bruises at all. Mizora blamed Riko for refusing to help her during training. After changing, they went to meet Kanata again. Mizora vented her frustration, saying no one acknowledged that Kanata and Fireteam E601 had fought against the beetle demons. Kanata calmly explained that since no one actually saw them in battle, it made sense that nobody would believe it. Mizora didn't expect that kind of response from him, especially after he had used a strange power to fight the giant beetle demon. Kanata quickly covered her mouth so she wouldn't mention it further, and then asked if she couldn't accept that fact. He reminded her that no one would really care about it anyway. Kanata then showed them a tournament flyer. All fire teams were allowed to participate, except for S-rank teams. The winner would be promoted by 2 ranks and receive a custom-made weapon from the Alchemy Division. On top of that, the winner would also get a free pass to enjoy Miss Gun's Street Food Festival. The students became excited about the idea of joining. Lekti started daydreaming about how amazing it would be if she won. Riko imagined the admiration she would receive from other students. Misora pictured Kanata praising her for winning. Each of them got lost in their own thoughts. Kanata then asked what they thought about entering the Miss Gun tournament. Lecty admitted it seemed impossible for them to win, but Misora was determined that they had to at least try. Lecty hoped they could at least win one match, and Rico agreed to participate. With that, Kanata decided Fireteam E601 would enter the Miss Gun tournament, and he would handle the application form. Suddenly, Chloe showed up and told Kanata that Freyan wanted to see him. Unexpectedly, Freyan dismissed Kanata from his position. She believed he couldn't make progress and only kept extending Fireteam E601's losing record, especially after that morning when the team members were fighting among themselves. Kanata noted that it seemed Freyan had been watching them closely. Freyan said suspending Fireteam E601 made sense, since they clearly lacked motivation, and that was the real reason behind their repeated losses. Kanata firmly declared that he was the instructor of Fireteam E601 and had sworn to make them respected Sky Wizards. Freyan doubted that, saying a traitor could never accomplish such a thing. Even though Chloe recommended Kanata, the final decision remained in Freyan's hands. Misora declared that she didn't care if the decision was Freyan's, because in her eyes, only Kanata could truly help Fireteam E601 grow. Freyan, however, couldn't understand what the other Fireteam members saw in him. Kanata believed that if Fireteam E601 managed to win the Miss Gun tournament, then everyone else would finally accept their existence. Freyan laughed when she heard that and mocked Fireteam E601, pointing out that they couldn't even beat Fireteam E. Kanata, however, was confident they could pull it off. Freyan said that if Fireteam E601 actually won the tournament, then she wouldn't suspend them. At that moment, Misora, Lecty, and Rico had been eavesdropping outside the room. Misora was shocked to realize that they were facing suspension. As soon as Kanata opened the door, the three of them tumbled in, embarrassed at being caught listening in. They quickly followed Kanata, asking why they were about to be suspended. Kanata advised them not to get too influenced by what they heard. Later, inside Fireteam E601's room, Misora, Lecty, and Rico sat in gloomy silence, still thinking about what they had overheard. Kanata asked what they planned to do. Misora said she wanted to make Fireteam E601 stronger and reach new heights. Lecty agreed with Misora's determination. Rico reminded them that she already held the highest position since she considered herself a goddess, but she would still follow Misora and Lecty's wishes. Kanata praised their determination but told them not to take things too seriously. What mattered most, he said, was simply winning every match they played. Misora pointed out that they had never won before, while Rico wondered how Kanata could stay so calm. Kanata explained that the tournament brackets were always distributed fairly and previous scores or rankings wouldn't matter. He told them to prepare because training would begin the next day. As he left, Misora couldn't believe that the conversation ended so abruptly. Before walking out, Kanata reminded them to attend the tournament's drawing ceremony the next day. That night, Freyan, Chloe, Yuri, and Lloyd went to a hidden facility. Freyan placed her card on a scanner and the door opened. A machine scanned her entire body from head to toe, and the same process was repeated for Chloe, Yuri, and Lloyd. Once all identities were confirmed, a massive door slid open leading to a long corridor. Freyan mentioned that they must have heard rumors about this place but assumed it was their first time visiting it. The truth was that this was where beetle demons were studied. The facility was filled with dissection and research equipment, similar to what they had seen in their organ dissection classes. Chloe asked how any of this was connected to their earlier discussion. Freyan pointed out that they had opposed the idea of the tournament. Chloe explained that the tournament only encouraged rivalry among students. Once they reached the secret laboratory, they were surrounded by dissected parts of beetle demons being studied by scientists. They even witnessed large-scale experiments, including dissections on giant beetle demons. Yuri had to hold herself back from feeling sick. Real appeared to greet Freyan and the others. He enthusiastically tried to shake Freyan's hand, though she ignored it. Real expressed his honor in meeting Sky Wizards. He already recognized Chloe, Lloyd, and Yuri, calling them members of Fireteams 128, a team responsible for special missions. He greeted each of them and mentioned having met Yuri before. Remembering the encounter, Yuri apologized for the past incident, wondering if it had left an awkward impression. Real was delighted that Yuri still remembered him. Freyan then told Real to show them the research samples. Real revealed pieces of a massive chimera he had found earlier. Freyan didn't know who had defeated it, but this new chimera was far larger than Chimera Deneb, and had been given the code name Chimera Antares. Real sliced off a piece of one of its tentacles, revealing that unlike Chimera Deneb, this one had regenerative abilities. Real was excited, explaining that the creature could continually provide samples, which could lead to breakthroughs in regenerative medicine. Freyan quickly cut the conversation short and prepared to leave. Before they left, Real mentioned seeing Yuri during the Miss Gun interviews and pointed out that she admired strong people. Yuri blushed nervously. Real felt fortunate to meet her again. After they were gone, Real secretly held on to a handkerchief that belonged to Yuri, treating it as something precious. While walking down the corridor, Freyan explained to Chloe, Lloyd, and Yuri that their enemy had the ability to evolve, and at the moment their forces were running out of strength. Chloe realized that this was the real reason behind the Miss Gun tournament. Lloyd noticed Yuri's silence and asked if she was feeling unwell. Yuri admitted she was simply shocked after seeing a place like that for the first time. Lloyd agreed that it was disturbing to see a lab filled with demon parts. Before they parted ways, Freyan told Yuri she would be asking for her help in the future. Yuri, however, couldn't understand why Freyan had chosen her specifically. The next day, the students gathered to decide the tournament slot allocations. Everyone was excited to take part in the event. At that moment, Fireteam E466 ended up in Block B, Slot 12, facing Fireteam A286. Fireteam E466 could only accept their fate since they had to go against a class of team. Meanwhile, Fireteam D299 was paired with Fireteam B621. When it was Fireteam E601's turn to draw their slot, Lekti and Rico cheered Misora on as she prepared to spin the lever. With a determined look, Misora pulled it and Fireteam E601 landed in Block D, Slot 4, where their opponent would be Fireteam E571. Lekti felt relieved that they would be up against another Class E team. Rico, on the other hand, said she would not have minded if their opponent had been from a higher class. Not long after, Kanata arrived and asked about the results of the slot drawing. Misora and the others quickly rushed over at him, with Misora explaining that they had been matched against another Class E team. Lekti expressed confidence that with this outcome, they would avoid being suspended. Just then, Yuri appeared and greeted Kanata. Kanata was surprised, wondering aloud since S-rank wizards were not supposed to participate. However, Yuri explained that she was not there to compete herself, but rather her fire team was. She revealed that the chairman of the Sky Wizards had assigned her as an instructor for a class of fire team. Unfortunately, her team, Fireteam A227, and Kanata's Fireteam E601 were placed in different blocks. Kanata thought this was actually a good thing, since it meant Yuri's team and his own might end up facing each other in the finals. Hearing this, Yuri was caught off guard. Kanata teased her, asking if she was afraid of losing. Irritated, Yuri denied it, wondering why Kanata sounded so sure that her fire team would lose. Kanata then turned the question around, asking if she truly believed her team could win. Yuri declared confidently that her fire team would, without a doubt, win. Kanata replied that if his team came out victorious, then Yuri would have to join his fire team. Annoyed, Yuri said there might be countless possibilities in the world, but she still accepted his challenge. With visible frustration, she left. Misora and the others then asked Kanata why he had said something like that. Kanata explained that it was part of an agreement he had made with the chairman of the Sky Wizards. If Fireteam E601 won the tournament, then Misora, Lekti, and Rico would not be suspended. Shocked, the three girls exclaimed that they had never heard about this deal. Kanata was puzzled, wondering if he had not mentioned it before. The three immediately shouted back, insisting that he had never told them anything about it. Freyan later shared some additional information about Miss Gun. The Sigi not only had secret labs and medical supplies, but also divisions dedicated to engineering, alchemy, industry, logistics, economics, informatics, and even the preservation of ancient relics. One night, a student was frightened and tried to avoid a mysterious person who kept following him. When he could no longer escape, the stalker suddenly attacked and left him unconscious. 3 years earlier, during a tournament when Kanata was still ranked at level D, he and his fire team faced off against a level A team. At that time, Yuri was watching the match from below. Kanata seemed to be moving away from his opponents, and Yuri assumed that a level D student like him would simply run when facing stronger opponents. But to her surprise, Kanata didn't run at all. When two of Ami's teammates approached, Kanata slowed down and immediately struck back. He successfully defeated his opponent, who wielded twin swords and turned to face the remaining one armed with a bow. The archer released an arrow toward him, but Kanata easily deflected the shot. Unexpectedly, the arrow flew off course toward Yuri. Kanata reacted instantly and blocked it to keep her safe. After confirming that Yuri was unharmed, he decided to finish the match quickly. He resumed the battle and ultimately defeated the remaining opponent. Kanata's fire team won the match. Yuri couldn't believe that a level D fire team had managed to defeat a level A team. After the match, Kanata walked over to Yuri. She thanked him for protecting her earlier. A moment later, Lloyd called out to Kanata, reminding him to get ready for the next match. As Kanata was about to leave, Yuri stopped him and said she wanted to return the favor someday. Kanata told her that she could do so by joining him in the sky, where people depended on him and his teammates who were ready to risk their lives to protect others. Then Kanata left for the upper skies. That was how Yuri first met Kanata. The next morning, Chloe gathered with Lloyd and Yuri to discuss the incident from the night before. Chloe explained that the victim hadn't seen the attacker's face. When she asked Yuri for her thoughts, Yuri seemed lost in thought, prompting Chloe to call her name, which startled her. Chloe informed them that the three of them, as members of a special fireteam assignment, would be joining Raven Nest for patrol duty. Yuri said she was ready to take on the mission. Just then, Kanata appeared and greeted them with a smile, which made Yuri blush slightly. She asked if Kanata had been eavesdropping on their conversation, but he denied it, saying he had just been napping in a tree nearby. Yuri asked if he was trying to start an argument, and Kanata smiled, saying he liked that side of her. Chloe agreed with Kanata, while Lloyd added that Yuri had seemed a little gloomy earlier. Yuri then excused herself, saying she had to go teach her fireteam. Chloe told Kanata that Freyan had assigned Yuri to train a fireteam as well. Kanata guessed that Yuri probably wanted to teach an E-rank fireteam like he did. Chloe was surprised he knew that. Kanata explained that although Yuri could be a bit careless, deep down she had a strong sense of responsibility. He believed Yuri wanted to stand on equal ground with everyone else, which was why she wanted to win her battles fairly and never complained about her problems. Lloyd then joked that cheering up Yuri was his responsibility. Kanata asked if he didn't like that duty, but Lloyd replied that keeping a friend's spirits up was actually something he was proud of. That afternoon, the E601 fire team was in the middle of their training session. Lekti asked Riko to help her with shooting practice, but Riko stayed quiet. Misora, who was busy firing at a beetle-shaped magic target, reminded Riko to focus on her job as the mid-guard. Riko complained that constantly turning her head forward and backward only made her neck sore. She said she might as well consider this entire practice as a test for herself. After the session, Kanata told them he planned to switch up their formation, rotating who would be at the front, middle, and back. Mizora objected, saying they couldn't just switch positions so easily. Unexpectedly, Lekti agreed with Kanata's idea and said she was willing to try since she believed his training methods were useful. Riko also agreed to participate, but she asked what Kanata would do if they ended up losing again after spending all that time on training. Kanata smiled and said they would have to wait and see when that happened. He then asked for Mizora's thoughts on his plan. Though hesitant, Mizora eventually agreed to give it a try. They began their training again. At that time, Mizora shouted for Riko to do something because more enemies were appearing. Lekti started to panic, worried about Mizora. After assessing the situation, Riko quickly came up with a strategy and activated her weapon. She told Mizora to handle the enemies on the left side while she and Lekti would take care of the ones on the right. Mizora pointed out that the enemies on the left were still too far away, but Riko reminded her that it was a task only Mizora could handle. She added that Lekti didn't have that kind of range. Riko then asked if Mizora could be trusted with that task. Mizora didn't hesitate to accept it and immediately moved to attack the enemies on the left. Riko then told Lekti to help her with the enemies on the right. Lekti apologized for her lack of skill, but Riko reassured her, saying that Lekti's ability was actually really helpful and admitted that she had only lied to Mizora earlier. Lekti was surprised to hear that. Without wasting time, Riko and Lekti rushed to face the beetle-type Devil Ball. Meanwhile, Kanata quietly observed them from a distance. Mizora attacked the Devil Ball from long range. Riko opened fire on the one in front of her, and Lekti took down the Devil Ball near Riko. Kanata could see that Riko's tactic was to lure enemies into a specific range before finishing them off. It was different from Mizora's usual approach, but he found it quite effective. Before long, Yuri and her fire team arrived for their own training. Her team consisted of Lily, Sasha, and Greg. They immediately started their session. Sasha used her sword to destroy the nearby Devil Balls. When more of them began surrounding her, Greg used his bow to assist her from behind. Lily told them to hold their position, then fired her weapon for long-range support. Mizora and her teammates could only watch. Not long after, Yuri's fire team successfully completed their training. Yuri then reminded Kanata and his team to get ready for the upcoming tournament. Mizora felt insecure and asked whether their fire team E601 could really win against a team like that. Kanata told her not to take it too seriously. According to him, if Mizora, Lekti, and Riko wanted to become strong fighters, the answer was already within them. To defeat a team like Yuri's, they needed to develop a proper technique. Kanata smiled confidently, clearly believing that Fireteam E601 had the potential to win. After the training session, Kanata gently massaged Riko's shoulders as a reward for finishing the day's drills. Meanwhile, Lekti and Mizora were resting, looking exhausted in the locker room. Riko then asked why Kanata was being so kind to her that day. Kanata said it was because Riko and the others had achieved something special. Riko asked if he wasn't the one who planned everything. Kanata replied that it seemed to him Riko was the one most concerned about Lekti and Mizora. Rico was surprised and asked what he meant. Kanata explained that since Rico was always watching over Lekti and Misora, it made her someone capable of guiding them when needed. He added that people like her were often considered kind and dependable. Rico was taken aback and told him that saying things like that wouldn't make her fall in love with him. Kanata simply said that it was up to Misora and Lekti to decide whether they thought Rico was a good person or not. Later that afternoon, Yuri stopped Kanata on his way home and asked to speak with him privately as fellow instructors. Kanata said he also wanted to talk to her, which caught Yuri by surprise. She looked nervous as she met his gaze. What they didn't know was that Misora, Lekti, and Rico were secretly watching them from a distance. Misora wondered why Kanata was alone with Yuri. Rico was also surprised. She'd have thought Kanata went straight home, but apparently he had gone to meet Yuri instead. Misora wanted to follow them, thinking she might find some useful information about their potential rivals. That evening, Kanata and Yuri went to a nearby cafe. Kanata ordered a black coffee and Yuri ordered the same. Kanata suggested that Yuri didn't have to force herself to drink black coffee, but Yuri insisted that she genuinely liked it. Misora, Lekti, and Rico also happened to be sitting in the same cafe, keeping an eye on the two instructors. Misora kept watching Kanata and Yuri's table, while Lekti asked if Misora could hear their conversation. Misora said their voices were too quiet to make out, but Rico pointed out that their seats were actually pretty close to Kanata and Yuri. A moment later, the waiter brought their orders. Yuri stared at the cup of black coffee in front of her, and Kanata gently suggested that she should order something else instead, maybe a soda or some ice cream. Yuri refused, saying she liked black coffee and didn't need something as sweet as soda or ice cream. She said she had her own pride about it. Then, to prove her point, she poured in a generous amount of sugar and creamer before taking a sip. Kanata smiled and told her that she probably would have enjoyed a cafe au lait more, but Yuri insisted that she really did like coffee. Meanwhile, Misora mentioned that she had heard something about Yuri being in trouble. Rico added that Yuri was no longer using the spear she used to fight with. Lekti began to realize that it might be because Yuri was on a date. According to Rico, it seemed like Yuri was dating one of her teammates. Misora was shocked and couldn't believe what she just heard. She looked a bit down and Lekti noticed it, asking why Misora wasn't eating her cake. Misora said she didn't have an appetite and told Lekti to go ahead and eat it instead. Lekti happily thanked her, saying she needed a lot of sweets to keep her energy up. Still, Misora couldn't believe that Yuri was dating Kanata and that they were actually out together at that very moment. At that time, Kanata asked Yuri what she wanted to talk about. Yuri seemed nervous and told him to go first instead. Kanata asked if it was true that Yuri was interested in people stronger than her, just like what was written in the Miss Gun bulletin. Yuri paused for a moment, then denied it. Kanata said she shouldn't have said something like that in public, especially since she was usually quite shy. Yuri insisted that she wasn't a shy person, and that kind of thing didn't matter to her anymore. But Kanata said it did matter to him, because he genuinely cared about her. He also mentioned that the person stronger than her, the one she seemed interested in, was Chloe. Yuri was caught off guard when she heard that. Kanata couldn't help but wonder if that was really the kind of person Yuri was. Feeling upset, Yuri stood up in front of him, frustrated that Kanata only wanted to talk about that. Kanata then reminded her that she was the one who asked to meet because she had something to say. Yuri then asked Kanata to quit being an instructor. In her view, even though everyone called him a traitor, Kanata still possessed unmatched strength, and she thought it was a waste for him to spend his time on the failed Fireteam E601. Kanata asked if that meant Yuri disliked his students. Yuri admitted it, saying that those so-called failures wouldn't last long in the academy anyway. Misora, who had been secretly listening, was clearly upset when she heard that. Kanata responded by saying that it was no different from how things were in the past with him and Chloe. He reminded Yuri that Chloe couldn't even fly properly back then and was once called a failure herself. Kanata said Misora and the others had real talent, and he was confident about it because he was their instructor. Misora was stunned by what she heard, while Yuri became visibly angry and decided to end the conversation. When Kanata tried to pay for the coffee, Yuri insisted that she would cover the bill since she was the one who invited him. But Kanata said he would also pay for someone else's order. It turned out he had realized that Misora and her friends had been following them. Misora told her friends that Kanata had noticed them, but Rico wasn't surprised at all. Kanata smiled as he looked in their direction. Later that afternoon, Chloe and Lloyd went to see Freyon to report new information about the recent incident. It turned out that all the victims so far were sky wizards who used close-range weapons. Freyon thought it might just be a coincidence, but Lloyd pointed out that the first victim was from Fireteam Class E, then the next from Class D, and the most recent attack had even reached Chloe's level. That meant the next target could be from Class B. That night, the mysterious attacker appeared again and ambushed a lower-ranked Sky Wizard. The culprit had the power to vanish and strike from behind. After defeating the victim, the attacker removed his mask, and it was revealed to be real. Riel had done all of it because he wanted to be acknowledged and chosen by Yuri. One morning, Lekti woke up and was startled to hear Misora still mumbling in her sleep. After getting ready, she decided to go for a morning run, and it turned out that Kanata was also jogging at the same time. Kanata asked why she was up so early. Lekti explained that she just wanted to go for a run, but Kanata suspected Mizora's restless sleep had made it hard for her to rest properly. He told her to be a little more assertive, saying that Mizora could be clumsy sometimes and even managed to damage her own place before. Lekti smiled and invited Kanata to sit and talk with her for a bit. They rested together, and Kanata handed her his drink so she wouldn't get dehydrated. Lekti accepted it, though her face suddenly turned red as she took a sip. As they talked, Lekti realized Kanata was trying to change Fireteam E601's battle tactics by splitting them into different positions. However, she thought it would be impossible since Mizora wasn't suited for the front line, and she herself couldn't really help much from the back line. Kanata gently patted her head and praised her for paying attention to such details. He admitted that Mizora indeed wasn't fit for the front, but told Lekti that she was doing great in many aspects and was very close to success. Before leaving, Kanata gave her a little hint to help her improve. After her run, Lekti went back to her job as a waitress at the cafe, wearing her maid uniform. Kanata apologized to the cafe staff for any trouble he might have caused earlier, but the staff said it was no problem at all. They even mentioned that the work system Kanata had once set up was incredibly efficient, and that his way of convincing suppliers had helped them a lot. Kanata told Lekti to get started quickly because lunchtime at the cafe was basically a battlefield. Lekti immediately began taking customers' orders and rushed to the kitchen to relay them. The cafe was packed, and she admired how fast and skilled the other staff members were at their jobs. A few moments later, the food was ready. One of the staff members offered to deliver it and told Lekti to go welcome the new customers instead. As she hurried off, she almost slipped, but another coworker reminded her not to rush and to just pay more attention to her surroundings. From that moment on, Lekti started being more mindful of everything around her, and her service speed noticeably improved. Kanata observed her closely and thought she was doing a great job. He realized that by simply being aware of her surroundings, she could handle everything better and achieve good results. That afternoon, Fireteam E601 began another round of training. Misora was frustrated because her shots kept missing their targets. Riko suggested she lure enemies closer before firing, which, according to her, explained why Misora had once accidentally shot her own house. Misora assumed Riko must be uncomfortable holding the middle position. As the training continued, Riko aimed at a group of beetle-like demon balloons flying toward them, and said that from her spot, she could shoot down 5 of them. Misora pointed out an enemy coming from the 12 o'clock direction, but Riko replied that it was Mizora's responsibility to handle that area. The two started bickering again like they always did until Lekti yelled at them to stop fighting. Not long after, Kanata came over to Lekti. She told him that the rear line felt unusually quiet. Kanata explained that the back line was the final defense and that it would feel uneasy if she didn't trust the front and middle lines. That made Lekti realize how much pressure Riko must have been under while defending the rear all this time. She'd also remembered the lesson she had learned from working at the cafe, being aware of her surroundings. She finally understood that during battles, she had only been focusing on what was right in front of her. Kanata smiled, happy to see that she had figured it out. Lekti then called out to Misora and reminded her that the job of the front line was to destroy enemies and clear the path. She admired how Misora could keep shooting even while moving quickly, something she herself couldn't do. Misora was surprised to hear such praise from her. Lekti said she was relieved by Mizora's progress and believed she could do even more. She encouraged her to maintain her movement and fire repeatedly, saying that would help her get even better results. Misora followed her advice and continued shooting. Lekti turned to Riko and said she finally understood how difficult the rear guard position was, realizing how much focus it took to monitor everything from a distance. Riko praised Lekti for being quick to adapt, unlike Misora, and then went back to her task confidently. Misora kept shooting at the approaching demon balloons, while Riko handled those that were farther away. Lekti thought that with Mizora's improved accuracy, Riko could now move more freely, which meant her own job as the rear guard was to stay alert and ready. A few demon balloons managed to slip past Mizora's attacks, but Lekti quickly reacted and took them down one by one with precision. In that moment, she finally understood what it felt like to grow stronger together as a team. Kanata approached her again, gently patted her head, and told her she had passed the test. Lekti's face turned red as she smiled shyly, while Riko and Misora quietly watched them from a distance. The next morning, after finishing his usual morning run, Kanata was greeted by Chloe with a warm smile. He was surprised to see the noticeable dark circles under her eyes. Feeling a little embarrassed, Chloe admitted that she had been on patrol all night and didn't get much sleep. Kanata asked if she had found any clues about who was behind the recent incident. Chloe explained that all she knew so far was that the weapon used had been a close-range type, and she asked Kanata to keep that information confidential. Kanata then asked whether Yuri had joined the patrol. Chloe said that Yuri hadn't, since she had to focus on her duties as an instructor, and Chloe didn't want to make her stay up all night. Not long after, Misora approached Kanata, asking him to stop what she called pointless training. She wanted him to give them proper advice, something that would help them grow like the students assigned to special missions. Kanata told her that doing things the easy way wouldn't help her improve at all. Misora asked what the purpose of the training was, especially since Riko and Lekti had managed to handle it, yet she still couldn't get stronger. Kanata thought her words sounded a little self-centered. He then told her that they would be having a Fireteam E601 meeting later that day and asked her to make sure not to be late. Chloe commented that Kanata seemed to be enjoying his time as the instructor of Fireteam E601. She added that it reminded her of how he used to teach Yuri. That day, Kanata took the members of Fireteam E601 to a new location. He told them that starting that day and until the upcoming match, they would all be living there together. He wanted them to spend more time as a team. Misora didn't understand the point of doing that, and Lekti didn't know either. Despite their confusion, Misora and Lekti began cleaning the place. However, Riko refused to clean such a dusty room, saying that chores like that were beneath her. Misora grew irritated and scolded her. Meanwhile, Yuri was walking through the back courtyard when Kanata suddenly called out to her and tossed a cream puff her way, asking her to catch it. Startled, Yuri managed to grab it just in time. Kanata praised her quick reflexes. Curious, Yuri asked what he was doing there. Kanata said he just wanted to greet one of the potential opponents he might face in the finals. Yuri asked if he was really confident that his students could make it that far and remarked that a traitor like him seemed overly optimistic. Kanata raised an eyebrow, asking what being a traitor had to do with being optimistic. Yuri replied that she didn't feel comfortable accepting anything from someone she still considered a traitor. Kanata explained that he had bought the cream puff from the same cafe they used to visit after training. He had originally gone there to get something for Misora and the others, but when he saw the cream puffs on display, he thought of Yuri and decided to buy one for her. Yuri hesitated for a moment but eventually accepted it, and Kanata couldn't help but laugh at her shy reaction. Elsewhere, Freya and Lloyd were visiting a student who had been attacked by an unknown assailant. The victim was an A-rank student. Lloyd mentioned that they needed to be more careful, as the next target could very well be an S-rank student. Later that afternoon, Kanata sat with Yuri on a park bench as she enjoyed the cream puff he had given her. When he offered her another one, Yuri didn't take it right away. Instead, she asked what he really wanted from her. Kanata said he had forgotten to ask her something. He wanted to know if she had refused to use a spear because he was the one who suggested she switch from using a sword to a spear. Yuri froze and blushed, and Kanata guessed that he was right. He told her that he had recommended the spear because she tended to step back during close combat, which could be dangerous for a swordswoman. Yuri replied that she hadn't had any problems fighting the beetle demons with her sword, so she didn't see the need to change anything. Kanata told her that her stubbornness was actually one of her strengths. It was what had gotten her this far. Hearing that, Yuri's face turned even redder. Kanata admitted that from the beginning, Yuri had always been strong and there hadn't been much he needed to teach her. Yuri was surprised to hear that, especially coming from someone she still thought of as a betrayer. Kanata said that there was something important he had wanted to teach her, not just about technique. Yuri remembered that lesson. Kanata had always told her never to give up, no matter the situation. Kanata said that as long as she kept that in mind, she would continue to grow stronger, even without him around. He was certain that someday Yuri would become an incredible sky wizard. Yuri asked why he was saying such things. Kanata said it was simply how he felt. Yuri grew slightly annoyed, saying that wasn't a real reason, just like his explanation about the spear. She then wondered why someone she once called a traitor would go out of his way to help her. Kanata replied that it was because she was someone very important to him. Hearing that, Yuri's face turned pink, and she couldn't hide her shy smile. Suddenly, a mysterious man appeared. He apologized for making Yuri wait so long. Kanata then told Yuri that she should be more careful when choosing her friends. Yuri raised her weapon, convinced that the man was the one who had attacked the Sky Wizards. Kanata was surprised to see Yuri ready to fight him. Yuri believed the man was just an amateur and that she could defeat him with a single strike. However, no matter how many times Yuri swung her sword, the man vanished in an instant. He called her slow, then suddenly appeared right in front of her, making Yuri instinctively step back. Kanata commented that Yuri still hadn't changed that habit of hers. The man moved closer to her and asked why she was running away. Yuri drew her sword again, but he easily blocked her attack. He told her to accept his affection, but his next strike sent Yuri flying backward. Yuri struggled to get back on her feet, saying she had never met him before. As she prepared to counterattack, the man disappeared again. Yuri began to focus, wondering whether he would attack from the right, left, or above. Her instincts told her to turn around, and she managed to knock his sword out of his hand just in time. The man then used a slicing wind spell strong enough to break nearby trees. Yuri was shocked to realize he possessed high-level magic. He continued launching wave after wave of wind attacks, leaving Yuri injured and exhausted. He demanded again that she accept his love, and as he prepared his final strike, Kanata stepped in and blocked the attack. Yuri told Kanata not to interfere, but Kanata replied that if he hadn't stepped in, she might not have survived. The man grew angry, frustrated that he had been so close to achieving his goal before Kanata interrupted. He unleashed another flurry of wind slashes toward Kanata, but Kanata effortlessly deflected them. The man recognized Kanata as the once famous Kronos, though he called him a traitor. He then moved at incredible speed, trying to outmaneuver Kanata, but Kanata carefully watched his movements and parried his strike. Kanata admitted the man was fast, but said his skill ended there. With a precise counter, Kanata's blade cut the man's hand. Kanata explained that Sky Wizards risked their lives mastering their abilities, while someone who relied only on speed could never hope to defeat them. Furious, the man decided to end the fight. He retreated, but Yuri swung her sword toward him as he fled. Before disappearing, the man said he would return one day, with love in his heart. He pointed toward Yuri's chest, then vanished. The man's name was Real. He soon returned to his laboratory, where he suddenly heard a whisper in his mind, telling him to use a fragment of a chimera's body. That night, Kanata carried the injured Yuri to the Fireteam E601 dorm room. When the other girls saw Yuri's torn uniform, they immediately jumped to the wrong conclusion, accusing Kanata of doing something inappropriate. That night, Kanata carried Yuri's unconscious body to the Fireteam E601's room. Riko immediately assumed that Kanata had kidnapped an instructor from the strongest team in the tournament just to weaken their opponent's morale. But according to Kanata, there was no way he would ever bring Yuri to his own room. When Yuri finally woke up, she immediately started looking for him. Misora and the others were shocked, especially when they realized Yuri wasn't wearing anything. Misora quickly tried to cover Kanata's eyes so he wouldn't see her like that. Yuri was just as shocked to find herself undressed and feeling extremely embarrassed, pointed her magic pistol toward Kanata. Kanata tried to calm her down, confused about why there was even a magic weapon inside the room. Riko casually explained that the gun was for protecting a goddess like herself, since she wouldn't let Misora sneak around while she was sleeping. Misora got annoyed and insisted she never did such a thing, claiming that what happened before was just part of their training. Kanata managed to take the pistol from Yuri and explained that he wasn't the one who had undressed her. It was Misora and the others. They simply didn't want Yuri to rest in her torn clothes. Yuri hesitated and asked if Kanata was really telling the truth about not peeking. When Kanata laughed awkwardly, Yuri's face turned bright red with embarrassment. Seeing her start to tear up, Kanata quickly escaped through the window. Misora then suddenly thanked Yuri. Riko mentioned that Kanata had told them how Yuri protected him from an attacker earlier. Riko admitted that the Special Assignment Fire Team really lived up to its reputation. Lekti brought Yuri some clothes, and after changing, Yuri apologized for troubling them. She asked if all members of Fireteam E601 were living together in that room. They explained that Kanata had ordered them to do so starting that day. Yuri was surprised to learn it was Kanata's idea. Riko complained that Kanata's unreasonable demands often made things harder for them. Misora scolded Riko for not even helping clean the room. Riko dismissed it as a simple chore and told Misora to think of it as a small price to pay for living under the same roof as a goddess, adding that Misora and Lekti should actually thank her. Lekti just went along with it, while Misora refused to accept Riko's attitude. Watching their playful argument, Yuri laughed and commented that Kanata used to make unreasonable requests like that with her too. Misora suddenly realized that Kanata had always been that way. When Lekti asked what kind of things Kanata had made Yuri do, Yuri blushed and looked too embarrassed to answer. Riko teased that it sounded like there was something going on between Yuri and Kanata. Yuri quickly denied it, but Riko just smiled and called her naive. Just then, Kanata came back and noted how everyone seemed to be getting along pretty well. Riko finally realized that was probably his reason for leaving them alone earlier. Kanata explained that he'd just gone to retrieve something he'd dropped. He handed Yuri a small keychain, saying it was a lucky charm he'd gotten as a bonus when buying a cream puff. Rumor had it that if someone held the charm tightly when facing trouble, something great would happen. Yuri replied that even though she had held it tightly before, nothing lucky ever happened to her. She wondered why Kanata had gone through the trouble of giving it to her. Kanata smiled and said he did it because he genuinely worried about her. Yuri looked flustered and slightly upset by his words, even though she was secretly touched. Kanata added that whenever she saw the charm, he hoped she would remember everything he had taught her. Hearing that, Yuri's face turned red again, her heart moved by his sincerity. Misora, however, got irritated and demanded Kanata explain what was really going on, why he wanted them to live together, and how that was supposed to make them stronger. Kanata just laughed and playfully pressed his hand on top of Misora's head for interrupting. Watching Kanata and Misora bicker reminded Yuri of the old days when Kanata used to spend time with her and the others. Feeling nostalgic, Yuri thanked everyone for helping her that day and said she would no longer underestimate Fireteam E601. She told them that if they managed to reach the final round, it would be their greatest achievement yet. Misora and the others were surprised to hear that. After that, Yuri quietly left the room. That night, Misora and the others couldn't stop thinking about what Yuri had said earlier. Misora was determined not to let Fireteam E601 disband just because they lost in the tournament. The atmosphere was tense, but out of nowhere, Riko said she was starving. Misora couldn't believe Riko could still be so carefree, especially since the dorm cafeteria was definitely closed at that hour. Then Riko told Misora to cook something, which made Misora even more confused. Why was she the one being asked to cook? Lecty quickly volunteered to make dinner for everyone. The three of them went to the dorm kitchen together, and Misora was surprised to find out that Lecty could actually cook. Riko teasingly said that Lecty was far better than a girl like Misora, who grew up helping in a cafe. Lecty just smiled and said she'd try to finish quickly since they were all hungry. She poured the boiled spaghetti into a pan, and Misora wondered if it was cooked enough. Riko told her to just watch and trust Lecty's cooking skills. Not long after dinner was ready, the three of them sat together and enjoyed Lecty's spaghetti. It was delicious, and Misora genuinely loved it. She said that when they came back again, she wanted Lecty to cook for her next time. Riko looked surprised that Misora, who was technically just a guest, dared to make such a request. Misora pointed out that Riko hadn't even helped Lecty in the kitchen. In response, Riko smirked and pulled out what she called her secret goddess seasoning, a sauce that supposedly made everything taste better. She poured some onto Misora's plate before anyone could stop her. Misora was shocked and thought Riko had just ruined Lecty's food, but when Lecty tried it, she admitted that it actually made the flavor even better. She had never realized that spaghetti could taste so good with that kind of sauce. Riko proudly claimed she knew the secret to making food taste divine. The sauce, she explained, was made from green chili, red ginger, and mayonnaise. Even Misora had to admit the flavor works surprisingly well. Still, she couldn't believe Lecty was willing to eat something with such strange ingredients. Lecty simply said she trusted Riko, even if some of Riko's ideas were unusual. Watching the two of them get along so well made Misora feel a bit useless sitting there. The next morning, Fireteam E601 woke up early to train for the upcoming match. Lecty, Riko, and Misora gave their all, shooting down the demon beetle balloons in front of them. When training was over, Misora and Lecty went to the kitchen again to cook together, but Misora accidentally cut her finger with a knife. While Misora was learning about a three-way attack formation, Lecty called out that dinner was ready. Riko joined them right away, eager to eat. The following day marked the opening ceremony of the Miss Gun tournament. Freyan led the event, expressing her hope that the tournament would give rise to new heroes. In this tournament, if a team leader lost, the entire fire team would be considered defeated. Kanata told Fireteam E601 to get plenty of rest since their match was scheduled for 2 days later. After he left, Riko commented that Kanata still hadn't changed at all, and Lecty agreed. Misora couldn't understand how Lecty could still smile, knowing that if they lost, their team would be finished. Frustrated, Misora stormed off. That night, Misora was still thinking hard about the three-way combination tactics they planned to use in battle. Riko pointed out that Misora seemed too tired to focus and should probably get some rest instead. A few moments later, Lecty rushed in, saying something was wrong with the bathroom. Riko went to check and found that the energy generator had broken down. Misora tried to fix it by channeling her magic to generate electricity. A sudden burst of sparks surprised them all, but somehow, the generator started working again. Riko sighed and said that Misora's random methods might work for now, but the generator probably wouldn't last long and might even break completely after they were done bathing. Later, Misora, Riko, and Lecty relaxed together in the hot bath. Misora was enjoying the warm water while Lecty helped wash Riko's back. She admired Riko's graceful figure, and Riko told her not to compare her to Misora. Lecty said it was actually fun living together under one roof, and Riko admitted she felt the same. Lecty mentioned that thanks to Misora, they got to share this last bath together before moving out. Riko joked that Misora tended to act before thinking, but Lecty reminded her that Misora had abilities neither of them possessed. Misora felt they were mocking her and questioned what the point of living together even was. She was frustrated that they had passed their training while she kept struggling. Hearing that, Riko raised her voice in anger. Misora snapped back, insisting that they wouldn't care even if their team lost. Her harsh words left Lecty stunned. Realizing she had gone too far, Misora quickly left, feeling guilty for shouting at them like that. The next day, the match finally arrived. Kanata and Misora were already preparing at the match venue. The stands were almost empty since it was only a Class E match. Kanata asked Misora whether living together with the others had been enjoyable. Misora admitted that it had only made her feel frustrated and painfully aware of how useless she thought she was. She felt like she was holding her fire team back. Kanata realized why Misora often said she could never become stronger. He gently told her to clear her mind and look around carefully, reminding her that there was no way she could see things clearly if she stayed lost in her own head. Not long after, the match was about to begin, and Kanata asked her to get ready to enter the arena. Misora then went to join Riko and Lecty. Their team, Fireteam E601, was set to face Fireteam E571, the same team they had fought before. Beach, one of their opponents, confidently said that her team would easily defeat Fireteam E601 in the first round. Misora and the others were caught off guard by that remark. At the same time, Freyan believed they could stop Kanata, the so-called traitor, from advancing to the next round. But Lloyd disagreed, saying that Kanata, known as Kronos, would show his true colors when cornered. Chloe, on the other hand, was sure that Kanata would never give up until the very end. When the match started, Misora immediately rushed forward to confront the enemy. She was determined to protect her teammates. She unleashed her strike blaster toward the opposing side, but her attack was easily dodged. The enemy had no trouble reading her moves. Moments later, Shayla advanced and fired a series of attacks at Misora. Beach followed up with another strike from behind, and Ami joined in from the opposite side. Ami's kick sent Misora crashing down. Ami called her reckless for charging in alone. Fortunately, Lecty and Riko managed to catch Misora before she hit the ground. They told her to fall back since it was their job to handle the situation. Lecty stepped forward to engage the opponents directly, while Riko stayed behind her, providing long-range support. Watching them fight, Misora realized she was only getting in their way. Kanata's earlier words echoed in her mind, his advice to look around her. As Misora took a moment to really observe her teammates, she saw how synchronized they were. Lecty used her twin blade magic technique to attack Ami, whose movements grew more desperate as she tried to keep up. Beach rushed in to assist Ami, but Lecty easily blocked her attacks. Meanwhile, Riko was firing precise shots at Shayla from a distance. Ami was shocked by how well Fireteam E601 was working together. Beach then suggested that they should target the team leader Misora instead and ignore Lecty and Riko. But Lecty didn't let that happen. She quickly went after Shayla, while Riko kept Beach and Ami pinned down with her shots. Misora wondered how Lecty and Riko could move so naturally in sync, almost as if they could sense each other's thoughts. She finally understood that it was because they trusted one another deeply. All this time, while living together, Lecty and Riko had built that trust. Misora, however, had been so focused on trying to become stronger on her own that she forgot what really mattered, trusting her teammates. Kanata had made them live together and switch positions during training for exactly that reason, to help them build real understanding as a team. Determined to finally do her part, Misora powered up her weapon and prepared to fire her strike blaster again. This time, the energy she poured into it was far greater than before. Seeing this, Lecty and Riko both smiled. Beach and her teammates began to panic, trying to spread out to avoid the attack. Riko felt relieved. Misora had finally found her place in the team. The fully charged strike blaster fired, and a massive explosion followed. Kanata acknowledged Misora's success with pride. The match ended with Fireteam E571 completely defeated. Misora couldn't contain her happiness. Their team had finally won its first victory. None of them could believe that Fireteam E601 had truly done it. Kanata was certain that even Yuri hadn't expected such a result. Meanwhile, in the lab, Real stood in front of a preserved chimera specimen. The creature's remains seemed to react faintly, as if urging him to keep using its power. Real injected a special serum derived from the chimera's essence, convinced that doing so would finally help him gain Yuri's acknowledgement. Fireteam E601 finally won their very first match in the tournament, and the whole team was overjoyed. It was their first real victory together. After that, they managed to win their second match as well. Freyan, however, was convinced that Fireteam E601 would eventually lose in the next round. But surprisingly, they went on to defeat a Class C team and advanced all the way to the semifinals. No one expected them to make it that far, yet Fireteam E601 managed to defeat Fireteam B936 in the semifinals too. Freyan couldn't hide her irritation after seeing that result. Misora herself couldn't believe they had come this far, and Riko even got emotional about their victory. Around that time, Kanata noticed Yuri sitting in the audience watching quietly. A magazine article had been circulating about how Fireteam E601 would be disbanded if they didn't win the Miss Gun tournament, which made their progress even more significant. That evening, Chloe walked alongside Lloyd discussing how Kanata needed to win this tournament. Lloyd mentioned that this was probably what the Chief Sky Wizard had wanted all along. Meanwhile, Lecty was walking alone down the corridor, lost in thought. She remembered how badly she had once wanted to change, but never thought she could. Thanks to Kanata, who had taught her so much, from becoming braver to believing in herself, she had started to feel that change. Her part-time job as a maid cafe waitress had also helped her gain confidence. Because of that, Lekti promised herself that she would do everything she could to win the final match tomorrow. Later that night, Riko was wandering outside the dorms when she came across the water tap, the place where she had first met Kanata. She recalled how, at first, she refused to be trained by him, but Kanata had stayed patient, continuously encouraging her to keep practicing with him. Even though she jokingly called him a pervert at times, she couldn't deny that he had been a great teacher who helped her improve so much. Misora was in the changing room getting ready for bed when she began reflecting on her journey with Kanata. She realized that even though he often made her angry or disappointed, especially after their rocky first meeting and the time he showed up in her house, he had actually helped her get closer to her dream of becoming a skilled sky wizard like her mother. Misora gently patted her own cheeks to boost her spirit. That night, Misora was doing some warm-up exercises when Lekti came over. Lekti admitted that staying in her room only made her overthink everything. Moments later, Riko joined them, declaring that tomorrow would be the day when the goddess, referring to herself, would finally show her true strength. The three of them trained together under the night sky, while Kanata watched from a distance. He could tell they were nervous, but he also knew they had grown so much stronger. The next morning marked the final day of the Miss Gun tournament. Students gathered at the arena, filling the seats with excited chatter. Lloyd and Chloe were assigned to security duty, making sure the area was safe. The stands were packed with students eager to witness the final battle. Kanata walked with Fireteam E601 toward the arena, and the crowd erupted in noise as they entered. Misora was overwhelmed by how many people were there and by all the cameras pointing at them. Lekti looked nervous as the audience's eyes turned in her direction, so Kanata gently patted her head and told her to relax. The crowd seemed confused as to how the so-called traitor team had made it to the finals. Some spectators even accused Fireteam E601 of using unfair methods under Kanata's coaching. Misora realized that most of the audience wasn't rooting for them. Riko, trying to lighten the mood, claimed that ordinary people simply couldn't understand the beauty of a goddess like her. When Fireteam E227, Yuri's team, entered the arena, the crowd cheered loudly in support of them. To everyone's surprise, Fireteam E571 began cheering for Misora and her team instead. Ami shouted for Fireteam E601 to win the tournament, which gave Misora and Lekti some relief. At least they thought not everyone was against them. Soon, the final match between Fireteam E601 and Fireteam A227 began. Kanata once again patted Lekti's head, reminding her to stay calm. Misora also felt nervous, knowing they were about to face an incredibly strong opponent. Kanata and Yuri sat down to watch the match. Yuri told Kanata that he shouldn't sit next to her, as people might start talking. But Kanata simply smiled and reminded her of the promise she made, that if her team lost, she would join Fireteam E601. The referee blew the whistle, signaling the start of the match. Lily quickly led her teammates in an attack. She fired shots toward Fireteam E601, forcing Misora and the others to dodge. Misora took to the air, while Lekti faced off against Shayla. Lekti successfully blocked Shayla's sword strike and told herself she wouldn't lose. Their battle continued fiercely, and Shayla admitted that Lekti was impressive. Craig fired an arrow to protect Shayla, but Lekti managed to block it, although she was shocked by the explosion that followed. Shayla swung her sword toward Lekti, but Riko's shot intercepted it just in time. Riko declared that she wouldn't let anyone lay a finger on Lekti. Lekti thanked her and quickly retreated to regroup. Meanwhile, Misora was still flying to evade Lily's constant attacks. Some spectators began mocking Fireteam E601, saying they were only running away from the fight. Even the academy head commented that the match seemed like it was going to end in a boring way. Meanwhile, Chloe was on duty guarding the area around the tournament, even though she really wanted to watch the final match. Lloyd called out to her, asking her to check behind the gate because the team's station there wasn't responding. Chloe hesitated, thinking that it was unlikely for the mysterious man to attack the place since almost all the Sky Wizards were gathered there. At that moment, Misora kept running, dodging Lily's attacks. Lily urged her to fight back, but Misora admitted that her strength wasn't on the same level as Lily's. She continued to evade without counterattacking, which made Lily realize how unpredictable Misora's movements were. Misora deliberately tried to provoke Lily by calling her a loser who couldn't even cast her spell properly. Lily responded that running away wouldn't help Misora win the match. But it turned out Misora was actually luring Lily into a specific position so that Riko could aim at her from a distance. Lily barely managed to dodge the shot,